Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm so close I could taste sweet victory. I know this life meant for me. Yeah, why would you bet on Goliath when we got Bet David? Valuetainment, giving values contagious. This world of entrepreneurs, we get no value to haters. How they run, homie, look what I become. I'm the one.
Ladies and gentlemen, for you guys watching at home and those in our studio, make some noise, everybody, right now. Thank you. We have an amazing show lined up for you guys today with an amazing guest. But before we introduce her, I'd like to bring out our PBD podcast home team. Up first, he's a finance expert, a club owner, and Miami's most eligible bachelor. Put your hands together right now for Adam Sosnick. Here we go for Adam, guys. Up next, he's a mentor, he's a father, and a business entrepreneur, and one of my best friends. Give it up for the biz doc himself, Tom Ellsworth. Next up, he's handsome, funny. Animals and children love him. His voice is so pure, people who have heard him sing call him the songbird of his generation. Give it up for me, Vincent Oshana. I love you guys. I'm very good. All right, guys, and for, you guys ready? You guys ready? All right, last up, businessman, entrepreneur, founder, and CEO of Valuetainment. Guys, big round of applause for Patrick Bet David!
You know, it's crazy. We just did a 2-day event at Mar-a-Lago, and our guys literally got a 12-hour break. We're back at it again with a live podcast today with somebody we've been looking forward to have on. You know who she is. She is loved. She is respected. She is feared by a couple people. Maybe you know some of their names. One, I think her name is, I think it's Hillary. One of them, she's feared. And she's also feared by another name. I think the other name is, I want to say Kamala. She's also feared, Kamala. Congresswoman, served in the military, ran for office as a president, and now she's on a short list of possibly being the next VP. Give it up, Tulsi Gabbard!
To me, the harder the road, y'all, the sweeter the victory. And I ain't no diabetic, surviving in my genetics. My mama told me early, you your only enemy. So I ain't come this far.
All right, Tulsi, great seeing you.
It's good to be back.
How you doing?
I'm great.
Yes?
Fantastic.
Okay, so here's what I want you to think about. We like data, we like numbers. Rob, if you can pull up the numbers of what the Vegas odds, right? I mean, if you watch the podcast, we watch the Vegas odds a lot. Adam always brings it up. This is January 23rd of 2024, Rob, if you can pull up the odds on VPs. If you look at the numbers, and I hope the audience can see it, you will notice on this list a ranking. Let me pull it up here on my own. Rob, if you're able to pull it up so people can see it. Is it up yet or no? Okay, there we go. Look at this. So this is January 22nd, VP, year ago. Kristi Noem was what everybody was talking about. Elise Stefanik, name was being dropped everywhere. Vivek, Ben Carson, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott. You don't see Tulsi. Now, pull up today's odds, and I want to start off with this. If you pull up today's odds, this is what you'll notice. Today's odds shows number one, Tim Scott. I believe number two,
wow,
today is Tulsi Gabbard as a VP, okay?
There you go.
Just a very simple question. Do you know something that the rest of us don't know about these? Just simple question. Go for it.
This is news to me too, my friend.
Is it really?
I have not been to that website, and so I wasn't aware of what it was a few months ago, and certainly wasn't aware of what it is today.
I guess the reason why I'm asking is there's this baseball player who has a friend who bets on behalf of him, and he's wondering if it's a good bet to bet on a Tulsi as a VP. The odds are looking, you guys know which baseball player I'm talking about. What's his name? Obviously, he didn't do anything. It was the guy that did it, whatever it may be, but I know a lot of gamblers want to know what's going on here. But Tulsi, with all the crazy stuff that's going on, obviously we got a video. We'll show it to you guys here in a minute. I want to show you guys a video. Did you see Newsom's video about Alabama, women, abortion? How many of you guys have seen that video? You've not seen it? Wait till you see it. You won't think it's real.
Are you going to play it?
I'm going to play it. They have to
All right.
see it for sure on what that video is all about. And then we got a couple things that's coming out with Weinstein today. I don't know if you saw that with what happened with Weinstein in New York. I want to get your thoughts on this. Did you guys hear what happened with Weinstein in New York? Very, very weird. In a state where a guy named Weinstein, who's known for what he's done, New York ends up apparently dropping charges on this guy, but they're going after another guy. What a wild state New York has turned into. I want to get your thoughts on that. The $95 billion bill. We got a bunch of other things that we want to go through. But maybe it's better if I quote you a little bit, and maybe this is part of the hot seat at first. Are you okay with this one? Let's start off with a little bit of a hot seat. Is that okay?
Let's do it.
You know I like you. You know that, right? I just want to make sure because I know you know how to
I
fight.
like the
I know
little
you're tough.
disclaimer there, PBD.
All right. It's called love. So
I got a friend who's armed with a staccato over there.
So here's what you said years ago, and I think a lot of people today in America maybe are going through what you went through. You are somebody that was the vice chair for the DNC, I believe, right? You are somebody that supported Bernie, and you even talked about Bernie. You are somebody that even voted and supported for Biden. You are somebody that also in the past said to Crystal Ball and Soccer, look, there's no question in my mind that Donald Trump is unfit to serve as president and commander-in-chief. I've said this over and over again. I'm running for president to defeat him for that specific reason. Then in the past, you've said to ABC News senior Washington reporter Devin Dyer, I believe, stoking these racist feelings and stoking religious bigotry in this country, tearing apart an already divided country for his own political gain, is beneath the office of the presidency and undermines the very values and principles of our democracy. You've also said in another statement here, in 2020, you said in a statement following her vote, Tulsi said, I'm standing in the center and I've decided to vote present. This is in 2020. I could not in good conscience vote against impeachment because I believe President Trump is guilty. Then you've also come up and you told, I believe, Tapper, I just came from intelligence briefings from that the administration came and brought to Congress. Really, they provided vague comments, no justification whatsoever for this illegal and unconstitutional act of war President Trump took. You've also said, I can continue a bunch of different things you've said about this. Now, many of us have made a lot of comments in the past before. Many of us used to be a different side politically, but you may have been the one that's pissed off Democrats the most. Why did you leave the Democratic Party to be where you are today?
Every one of you has a book there where I go into detail about exactly why I did that. But, you know, there are a few different things that you cited there in those quotes. And we won't spend too much time dissecting every one of them. But I've made no secret about the fact that there were different decisions that President Trump made that I disagreed with. The one vote that you cited was I was the only Democrat in Congress who did not vote to impeach Donald Trump because I saw what that was exactly. It was a political witch hunt specifically for partisan reasons and how dangerous a precedent that sets. Our founding fathers warned against that impeachment being used for partisan purposes rather than for what it was actually intended for. I never got into the kind of personal smears and attacks that the Democrats did against Donald Trump when he was president, because I felt that for our political discourse in this country, whether we agree or we disagree, we need to stay focused on the substance. A lot has happened in our country from then until now. I was critical of my then party's president, Barack Obama, and earned the ire of Democrats at that time. I've been known to be an independent thinker and a straight shooter. my country comes first. It always has, it always will. That's what motivates the decisions that I've made. And ultimately what drove me to leave the Democratic Party was how could I, in good conscience, align myself with a party that at every step of the way has become the party that opposes freedom, that completely derides the Constitution and throws it in the trash, doesn't believe that it's relevant to our country today. And as we are seeing over and over, and it looks like we'll talk about some of these examples, at every turn, they are willing to undermine the rule of law and politicize all these government agencies, the Department of Justice, law enforcement, and so on, just to remain in power, going so far as to try to take away every one of our rights to decide who we want to vote for in this election. And they're doing that through the court of law. They've done it through over 32 states trying to get Donald Trump off of the ballot. They are so terrified of we, the American people, making, quote unquote, the wrong choice in their minds, that they are willing to take away our freedom to supposedly protect ourselves and, in their words, to save democracy, to destroy democracy in order to save it. But really what they're doing is just trying to protect themselves. But it shows that twisted mindset, and we saw it in the Supreme Court ruling on that Colorado case with the Colorado ballot, when unanimously the Supreme Court said, no, the people decide elections. A court doesn't unilaterally get to decide who's allowed to be on a ballot and who's not. And the reaction from people like David Axelrod and senior Democrats, the Democrat elite across the board, they immediately criticized the Supreme Court, which included some of people from their team, and threw up their hands and said, oh gosh, I guess the American people have to be the ones to save our democracy. It shows that twisted mindset that I saw building over time throughout the time I was in the Democratic Party, and it got to a point where there was no way I could associate myself with them anymore.
You know why I'm asking that question? And by the way, for those of you that are watching, her book, did the book come out today or?
You guys are getting advanced copies, every one of you.
Right.
The book is not out yet. For those who have put in pre-orders, it will be in your mailbox on May 1st.
Yeah,
It'll be
this
on
is, by
shelves
the way,
April 30th.
everybody that's here is getting a signed copy by Tulsi, just so you know, before anybody else does. And for people out there that are watching, absolutely. Everybody here is getting a signed copy. And for everyone out there that's watching, Tulsi is officially on Manect. Rob, if you can show her Manect, the first 50 people that Manect with Tulsi, we will send you a copy of the book as well signed. We bought copies to get it out there because we are so confident in her message being out there. We feel more people need to hear from her. So the first 50 that Manect with Tulsi, ask her whatever questions you got, and those 50 names we'll get, we're going to send you a copy. Just make sure you're in America. If you're anywhere else outside of America, we're not shipping to you. If you're not in America, don't do the Manect. Only in America we'll ship the copy to your first 50 states. Thank you for that. Let me go back to the question why I asked you. When I asked a question like that, it almost seems like it's an asshole question, right? Why would you bring something up like that? Why would you start off with something like that? I only bring that up because I think a lot of people in America feel that way, that maybe before, you know, everybody had an impression of who he was and what he was doing because of what we were watching everywhere. And a lot of people got bamboozled where you're sitting there saying, man, this is really what's going on. He was really dealing with Russia. Was he really doing this? Is he really doing, and then year, 2 years, 3 years, wait, this was all Hillary doing this to him and she did it to you. So was there a part of it for you where you're sitting there saying, you guys are this, the Democratic Party, you guys are some deceptive, dark, gamifying, dividing America for at any cost to fool people just to win an election? Did you experience that kind of anger and agitation where you finally said, I'm done with you guys. You guys almost had me, but I'm out of here?
Yeah, yes, but I saw it very early on. I saw it throughout that 2016 campaign. I saw how the dangerous rhetoric, the Russian agent rhetoric they were using against Donald Trump during that campaign. And as a soldier and a veteran, when you have people in positions of power using that kind of dangerous rhetoric, it's not just empty words thrown around on a campaign trail. There are actually foreign policy related consequences and national security related consequences to that. I was invited to meet with Donald Trump 2 weeks after he was elected in 2016. This was right before Thanksgiving, and I was the first Democrat in Congress to go and meet with him. Flew from Hawaii to New York and had a conversation with him about foreign policy. There were some folks around him who asked me to go and speak to him specifically about the Middle East, about combating radical Islamist terrorism, what's going on with ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And of course, I was grateful for the opportunity to go and meet the person who would be our next president, commander-in-chief. And we had a great conversation. It's point to point, sat across from his desk there in Trump Tower. We talked for almost an hour. He asked a lot of great questions, shared a lot of his insights. I did the same. And I can't even tell you how much my phone blew up as soon as I walked out of that building afterward. And one of the things that struck me was how so many of my Democrat colleagues back then, even some family members, they were horrified. They were horrified that I had the gall to meet with Donald Trump and criticized me for, quote unquote, humanizing him. That was probably one of the first things that I saw that just showed, what we now know as the Trump derangement syndrome. To me, any member of Congress who cares about the country and who cares about a specific issue, if you're invited to meet with the President of the United States and you don't take that opportunity, then you are doing a disservice to the people who voted you into office. Whether you agree with them or not on other issues, whether you like them, you don't like them, that's not the point. If you care about solving problems, if you care about actually doing the work of the people, of course, take every opportunity to do that. And it only escalated from there. And it was, conversations that happened in the cloakroom off the House floor in the Democratic caucus. People were unable to see things as they were, just from a substantive policy standpoint. And instead, things very quickly devolved into some alternate reality that sounded like a good political talking point, but wasn't actually a reflection of what was happening.
And by the way, we were looking at that video from earlier today in New York. Rob, can you pull up this video? So this is New York City today, okay? This just happened apparently a few hours ago, where a lot of folks in New York who are sitting in this video saying, we see ourselves as Democrats, and this is how we feel today. Rob, let me know if you have the video ready or not. If you do, go ahead and play the video.
In the past, we are basically Democrats, all of us, and after what's happened the last 4 years in this country, Democrats are basically pushing everybody to the other side. We're a very patriotic group, and we love our country, and we want the best for America. We are tired of immigration. We're tired of our tax dollars going to immigration. We're tired of the crime. We need to put a handle on things in this country and bring it back to how it should be. I put out a poll in my union. President Trump is leading Joe Biden 3-1 on my presidential poll out of my 9,000 members right now. We are very tired of the situation with groceries, inflation, gas prices, illegal immigration, crime. We're living it every day in New York City.
Why do you think this is happening? I mean, this is New York City. Some are even saying President Trump may have a chance of winning New York. He even thinks he may have a chance of winning New York.
Yeah.
Why do you think they got here, specifically union?
This is something that I talk about quite a bit. Is this guy who you just had on there? He's the president of the Steamfitters Union there in New York City. In my experience, and President Trump had recognized this as well, even when he ran before, is when you go to the construction trades unions, the unions that actually represent the working people, there's a huge difference between them and what we see from the National Education Association, which is essentially a political arm of the Democratic Party that doesn't really look out for teachers. They are pushing a very clear political agenda. These guys are seeing what most people in the country are seeing, that no matter how much President Biden and his administration says, well, Bidenomics is working, guys, everything's great. Anybody who goes shopping at the grocery store knows that Bidenomics is not working and that inflation continues to rise. And there are so many families and people struggling in our country. And so that's really where I see this election is about. It is really about the elite, the political elite versus the people. And so I would not be surprised to see many more people, whether they are verbally coming out and saying what that union leader was saying or keeping it to themselves, but recognizing the reality of what their family is facing and then hopefully casting their votes that reflect that reality.
Yeah, it's wild to see that. Again, I don't mean to keep going back to New York. Obviously, we all know what New York is doing right now to the president. But Rob, can you pull up the Harvey Weinstein story of what Morning Joe was just announcing earlier today, a couple hours ago? I sent a clip to you as well. We keep going back to New York over and over and over and over and over again because the gag order, well, he can't say anything. Every time he says something, it's another, $1,000 fine they're going to have. And I want you to watch Morning Joe. We all know Joe Scarborough, smart guy. This is not somebody that doesn't know what he's doing. He's been around for a while. He's been around the block. He went to school, a pretty left school as a conservative himself, and he has to read the script of what New York chose to do to Harvey Weinstein. Rob, if you have the clip, it's just 55 seconds or something. Please play this clip.
News, the New York Appeals Court overturns Harvey Weinstein's 2020 rape conviction from the landmark Me Too trial.
Look at her reaction.
Written by Michael Sisek with the AP. New York's highest court on Thursday overturned Harvey Weinstein's 2020 rape conviction, finding the judge at the landmark Me Too trial prejudiced the ex-movie mogul with improper rulings, including a decision to let women testify about allegations that were not part of the case. Harvey Weinstein is, though, of course, he's in jail in Los Angeles after being convicted of rape in 2022. Other charges there. So he will still be in jail there, but this case, which came 4 years ago, reversed. Breaking.
Meanwhile, can you do me a favor, Rob? Because I want to get the full reaction to this from Tulsi. Can you play the Michelle Obama clip of the wonderful endorsement that Harvey Weinstein got? I don't know if you guys have seen this or not. It's a beautiful, very heartfelt type of endorsement. The kind that gets you a little bit emotional and sentimental type of endorsement,
tissues?
right?
Do you have tissues
Where,
over there?
I got over it because I saw it earlier. So Rob, if you're ready, please, guys, if you're ready, brace for impact. You may get emotional. Go ahead.
Very touching.
Yeah, go ahead,
I want
Rob.
to start by thanking Harvey Weinstein for organizing this amazing day. Harvey. This is possible because of Harvey. He is a wonderful human being, a good friend, and just a powerhouse. And the fact that he and his team took the time to make this happen for all of you should say something, not about me or about this place, but about you. All right, everybody, we are here because of you.
So now, Harvey in New York, let's kind of move on. But Trump, gag order, can't talk, prevent him from campaigning. As somebody that's been in this space for a while, you've had some of the biggest fights with heavyweights. In the left, it doesn't get any heavier and scarier than Hillary Clinton. You went straight after her, and she started saying you're a Russian asset or something. I don't know if do you guys remember when that happened? How many of you guys remember when Tulsi went after Hillary? What was your reaction the first time? You're like, oh my gosh, I love this girl, right? Did we all kind of convert?
You know what's funny, Pat, is long before she said that, and this was, I want to touch on the Bernie thing, but I resigned as vice chair of the DNC because I saw how, for two main reasons. I saw how directly Debbie Wasserman Schultz was rigging the primary in favor of Hillary Clinton, number one. And number two, I saw how across the mainstream media, across the Democratic Party, they were touting Hillary Clinton as, and you probably remember this, the most qualified person ever to run for president in our country's history. Ever. And they threw that line out over and over and over again, but never backed it up with anything. They never said, oh, well, yes, she was Secretary of State. Yes, she was U.S. Senator. Yes, she was First Lady. But what did she actually do? What was her record there? What kind of impact and influence did she have on the president from those positions of power? What were the consequences of her votes, specifically related to her being the queen of warmongers? So she wants to be commander-in-chief, but nobody's pointing to her record. That pissed me off. And so I resigned as vice chair of the DNC. I saw the choice in that primary between essentially Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Bernie Sanders, largely a non-interventionist, and I took the opportunity and I endorsed him solely on that issue to have a platform to go out and hit the road and call Hillary Clinton out for her foreign policy record and to sound the alarm to the American people on what kind of dangerous person she would be if allowed to be commander-in-chief. two things happened after I made that announcement on Meet the Press. Washington, the age-old thing is you don't trust anybody. If you want a friend, they say get a dog. I didn't tell a soul. I didn't tell my best friends in Washington what I was going to do because I trusted no one. We set up an interview, a live interview on Sunday, Meet the Press. Didn't tell them what I was going to say, just that I had a big announcement to make. They saved me a slot. 30 seconds before I was about to walk out on the stage, I clicked send on an email to Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the other vice chairs saying I am resigning effective immediately, and here's why. Went on there, made the announcement Sunday morning, went back to work in Congress on Monday, and I lost track of how many of my Democrat colleagues just said, Tulsi, you just committed political suicide. You know Hillary Clinton's going to be president, right? Your constituents in Hawaii, my district in Hawaii is the 2nd district, covers every island in the state. You will not get a single penny for your district when Hillary Clinton is elected president. It doesn't matter how badly your constituents need new roads built or new infrastructure funded, you're not going to get anything. One of them who had endorsed Barack Obama very early on in 2008 over Hillary Clinton, he said, Tulsi, you need to know that there is actually a shit list. I know because I was on it, and it will take you at least a decade to get off that list, just so you know. About a week later, I was at one of the presidential primary debates. I think it was actually here in Miami, and I was being interviewed on live TV by an MSNBC reporter. Again, this is 2016. And that reporter said, Tulsi, aren't you afraid of what the Clintons will do to you? And that was really the first kind of red flag signal that went up. And I smiled and I said, no, of course I'm not afraid. I know exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I'm concerned for the future of our country if Hillary Clinton's elected president. But I think Hillary never forgot that. And that ultimately is one of the many things that led to her taking the same tack that they are taking with Donald Trump, which is, well, they must be agents of Russia. That's all they have.
And that's the biggest compliment, though. If she attacks you, you are officially someone she fears. I don't know if there's a better compliment you can get. Like, I don't know who's quoted on the back of your book. Well, one of the quotes needs to be Hillary Clinton because it should be a way, like a badge of honor. And the reason why I say this, I was on a Twitter Spaces a couple months ago. And there was a lot of people talking about different VP and who would be good and who would be this and who would be that. I'm not in the political world, but we get a lot of weird phone calls of people wanting to ask us for counsel. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? We're just regular people that are running businesses, but every once in a while, weird people call us. And I always bring up your name because there's something that is fearless about you. I love when someone knows how to rattle other people on the other side. And in boxing, you know, we just had a very big fight, which was who? Ryan Garcia against Devin Haney. I don't know if you watch it or not. Ryan fooled the world, right? He literally trolled the world, and he said it. I trolled you guys, and I won, right? I'd love a rematch to see what he's going to do with, you know, Tank Davis. Maybe not at 134 pounds or 136 pounds that he can only gain 10 pounds. Maybe at 145, and he can gain whatever the weight. I'd love to see what that rematch fight looks like. Oh, I would love to see you and Kamala on stage. Oh. You know, can you imagine that visual, right?
There you go.
If Tulsi's chosen as the VP, I just want to, if they sold that pay-per-view, my gosh, we would sell millions of pay-per-view.
There's a fundraising idea for Donald Trump's campaign.
Of course there is. That would be an easy one, right? So no, I just think about, you know, when, so maybe let me ask a question a different way from you. If Donald Trump is watching this and somebody asks a very simple question, how should he assess who to choose as a VP this time around that's different than 2020? Because 2016. Because 2016, Pence was kind of strategic where he was going, you know, a state that could have helped him out.
Indiana,
evangelical, Christian,
yes.
Kind of calm. You know, doing his own thing, you know.
Kind of a middle America psyche, too.
Yeah. And Trump kind of needed that because he was a little bit edgy. So everybody's like, okay, that guy's going to be in his ear. At least somebody has got a little bit of calm temperament that's going to be okay. How do you think strategically would be the right choice to make as a VP today? What do you think is different about 2024 versus 2016?
Well, first of all, I think it's important, and I get concerned every time I meet people as I travel who say, yeah, Trump's going to win this election. It's in the bag. It's a done deal. I've been through enough elections and I've seen enough elections where it is not done until that last vote is cast. And it concerns me when I hear this from people because it allows for a sense of complacency. We saw this in 2022. The outcome of the election was very different than what pundits on both sides of the aisle were saying it would be. And I think, and I talked to different campaign operatives. They said, well, gosh, there were 25,000 people in the state of Georgia, or 50,000 people that we expected to show up that just didn't show up and vote. So winning elections is about winning support. For President Trump or anyone running for president, frankly, you want to be able to bring people in to support you who may not already be there. And so that I think is probably one of the criteria that he's looking at, or that he should be looking at, is he's already got a huge following and a huge base of support that's very, very loyal. How do you bring over, there was a Gallup poll that came out recently, a week or two ago, that showed 43% of voting Americans are unaffiliated with either party. 43%. So
Wow.
that's a huge group of people who maybe they're undecided, maybe they're decided, who knows, but they are not already locked in from a partisan standpoint. There's a huge number of people like Bob Bartels, the video of the union leader we just saw, people who may already be in that pocket of identified Democrat voters, but they're saying no. The Democratic Party has forced us to look elsewhere. I can't in good conscience vote for a Biden-Harris administration. So there's a lot of folks out there, people who may have walked a similar path that I have, a similar path that Adam has walked, who maybe identified as Democrats for a really long time, but have gotten to a point where it's just like they have gone crazy. Those are the kinds of people that I don't want to say up for grabs because it sounds very transactional, but who are looking for the right answer in how they want to cast their vote. That's number one. And then number two is it's critical that President Trump have someone by his side who has a backbone and courage and ready to take on the fight of our frickin' lives in Washington to root out the rot and corruption that is so deeply entrenched in every part of our federal government.
But, by the way, couple things, and Adam, I'm going to come to you. Adam also identifies as a 25-year-old white male, but that's a very different story. A lot of people can vouch for that. But so, no matter what happens, he kind of feels like he's aging backwards. But Rob, can you please play the clip of maybe a highlight reel, just to kind of remind some of you guys. Sometimes with social media, we have a short memory. Here's Tulsi body slamming Kamala. Go for it.
I love this.
Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Oh,
it's just a beautiful moment. It's like highlight. Da-na-na, da-na-na. Tonight, Tulsi Gabbard body slammed Kamala Harris in the debate stage, Go ahead, Adam.
Well, right there with you, Tulsi. I firmly believe there's a lot of independents or even Democrats who in 2016 or in 2020, there was a 0% chance they were going to vote for Donald Trump. And now he is fully in play for their vote. And that's not just me. I think there's millions of Americans right there, especially in swing states in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, for sure. We were talking about the qualifications of what it would take to be a VP. So fully on board with your bravery, with your courage, speaking truth to power, When I think of Trump, the one thing you need to have to bring to the table for Trump, you said it, is loyalty. Yeah. So there's millions of people that are loyal to Trump. Your loyalty, obviously, I'm not questioning your loyalty, but if you just look at the evidence, you're not loyal to the Democratic Party. You've left them. They weren't loyal to you. You're also fully on board with being critical of Trump. It's not a secret. Pat talked about it. What's going to happen if you are in the Oval Office and he says something you don't agree with? I mean, we saw what happened to Mike Pence. This guy was his lapdog for 3 years and 364 days. Now he's dead to him. You've got a backbone. You've got courage. What's going to happen? You're like, yeah, Trump, I don't agree with you on this. What would happen to your loyalty then?
Here's what I think
Why are you
is
starting a fight already? Like, what's the matter? Jeez, I thought you guys were have a nice but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Here's what's important, and here's where, so much of the caricature and the narrative that those who hate Trump put out. We were talking a little bit backstage there about what's going on with the Supreme Court and this whole immunity challenge and everything else. One of the Democrats' favorite lines is, we have to save democracy by stopping Trump, because if he is allowed to be reelected, it'll be the last election the country ever sees, and he will become the dictator in chief, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so, yes, loyalty is important. I make no bones about the fact that my loyalty will never be to a single party. It will always be to our country first. I don't question Donald Trump's loyalty to our country, and here's why. If it doesn't matter how many people say, well, he's only in it for himself and this and that. The guy has been, 92 or 97 felony charges now. He's being held up in a court of law. He is his bank account is being cleaned out by all of these various charges and rulings that are coming through. The guy is losing money. He is being attacked relentlessly. He has the Department of Justice being weaponized against him. You look at all these things that he's going through. One of the court cases he has now was only picked up again after he announced he was running. Previously, they had looked at the charges and said, there's nothing here. We're not going to pursue this. Why would a guy like him put himself through that if not motivated by a desire to serve our country and to save our country from the Biden-Harris administration, the Democrat elite, who are actually destroying it? They are actually taking away our freedom. They are actually going after our kids. They are taking parents' rights away from them. They are making our country less secure through open borders. We can go down the laundry list of very, very serious challenges. These aren't Democrat or Republican problems. There are problems that affect every one of us. So, if I were in a position, if Donald Trump said, hey, here's what I think we should do, what do you think? And if I did not feel it was the right thing for the country, I would absolutely tell him so and respect the office that he holds. But I'm not chasing any titles. I'm not chasing any jobs. I'm chasing the opportunity to be in the most impactful position to save our country, because there is nothing short of our future and our freedom that is at stake in this election.
And Tulsi, what do you say to those people that are saying, like, let's say God willing, he wins, and hope to God you become the vice president. He's still going to come into that same place that has the swamp, same place that has the deep state. Yeah. They haven't gone anywhere. The Chuck Schumers are going to be there, the Pelosi's, the Hillarys, the Obamas, being the puppet master. What's going to be different in this, God willing, like I said, he wins. What's going to be different? How are you going to still beat that same swamp?
I think that is one of the most critical questions. And based on what I've heard from very different people, and I think President Trump has talked about it himself, that there are things that he knows now that he didn't know when he won in 2016. And just as important as winning the election is recognizing that there's got to be a plan in place to, again, put leaders with courage and a backbone and who really are committed to putting our country first into those over 4,000 positions that are filled, that are presidential appointees. It's not enough. Yes, you got to start with the senior cabinet officials, but there's so many positions throughout every one of these agencies and institutions and departments that are political appointees that cannot be people who are like, okay, yep, I want that job because it's good for my resume and I know I want to run for the US Senate or I want to get this job next, looking out for their next media gig or whatever it may be. The Washington bubble is so incestuous and so self-centered that people, it's constantly looking for how can I use you to help get myself ahead. He has to choose people into these positions who really sincerely are dedicated to putting country first and are willing to take the beating and the attacks and the smears and everything else that comes with it.
Well, Washington needs a lot of change, and they're changing the way people operate for the worse. The vice president used to fly around the world handing out funeral wreaths. I mean, let's be real, and carry a state or carry a people group in an election. Yeah. That all needs to change. We all know that right now we're only one flight of stairs from an even worse president, right?
That's true. We laugh, but as bad as anyone thinks President Biden is, I guarantee you, President Kamala Harris will be far more dangerous, for a few reasons. And I've said this before. You have some people.
I think it's shut off.
Did I just turn this off?
There you go. There
you guys hear it now?
All right, I'll stop touching it. You see this in Kamala Harris. You see this in Hillary Clinton. When you have,
it's not on.
Check.
Is the mic on? Can you guys hear it or no? No?
Mic check.
Hold that thought.
Yeah. I think if you move it a little bit further, Tulsi, right there.
Move it out.
There you go.
All right.
Better?
All right.
Okay.
Can
There
you
we
hear
go.
it?
Just right there.
Okay, I won't touch it anymore. When you have, this not only applies to women, but when you have a person, but in this particular case, when you have women who feel as though they have to prove their strength, and then you put them in a position where they can make decisions about dropping bombs and sending troops to war, this is the kind of dangerous president Kamala Harris would be, that I have no doubt in my mind that she would go and start a new war or send my brothers and sisters in uniform to some far-off land as her way to flex and say, hey, see, look, I am tough. I am strong. But put other people's lives on the line to do it, all for herself. That is the danger. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I really appreciate that, and that actually helps add color to it. When you were giving that answer to Kamala Harris, those of us that were from California that saw a massive percentage of predominantly African-American men being incarcerated for minor drug charges, when she was Attorney General and saying, see, I'm tough on crime.
Exactly.
We saw it was fake. It was a fake position at just an unconscionable human cost. Back to the VP, the vice president position has to change. Right now, I guess she's in charge of trying to find the border someday, right? Specifically,
It's tough for some people.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Well, she's admitted it. I will get there at some point. Anybody have Google Maps? So how would you change the position of vice president, where you were in the legislature?
Yes.
And as they say, every now and then an innocent person is sent to the legislature. And that's a very old political joke, by the way.
Two of you got it.
But you remember.
Oh, yes.
It's, Congress. Who, us? The VP position, where would America see you leading specifically? Where would we see you making an impact in policy? Where would you step up and say, Mr. President, I want this, put me on this?
If given that opportunity, being able to fix our country's foreign policy and the failure of leadership that we see in the Department of Defense would be the two areas that I feel especially experienced and qualified in being able to help transform.
By the way, just so everybody knows, you're talking to a person here who's a lieutenant colonel for 20 years. You've been in since 2004 serving, right?
2003, yeah.
2000,
April was 21 for me.
21 years in the military as a lieutenant colonel, experienced politically. If I'm not mistaken, you were a state representative also at 21 years old.
Yeah.
So you started there early.
Yeah.
And then in today's climate, I think the 43% comment that you made, RFK said that also about 5 weeks ago, and I don't know what podcast it was. He was talking about 43%. He's convinced it's kind of going to go through him, meaning there's a bigger independent voter today than ever before. People are kind of sitting there saying, I'm open-minded. Even Stephen A. Smith the other day is making comments about what the left is doing, and then today he had to come up with a different kind of a message because NAACP apparently got upset at him. So he kind of had to backtrack a little bit with the position he took. But at the core, when somebody tells you what they're telling you first, and then they go back, guess what the real belief is? Is this. This was real. Yeah. This one is just somebody called and said, hey, you better backtrack or else. But the first one is really how I feel, right? So, you know, stories came out with RFK, and I know you've commented on this before. You're friendly with RFK.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen lists where you were also being considered as a potential VP for him, right, as RFK. And some people wanted that to see what happened. And obviously, it didn't work out. Story came out. You turned it down. You went to a different direction. And we know who he chose. How is your relationship today with RFK?
It's great. We remain friends. We keep in touch. I respect him greatly. He has been for a long time and continues to be a voice for truth. And I have no question in my mind that how much he loves our country and how much he cares about people.
Can I ask you a strategic question?
You can ask.
Here's a strategic question for you. So, let's say, small circle, President Trump is sitting there saying, eventually we're going to have to go through RFK. And we have to figure that out because it's going to be challenging. The last RFK was an RP, right? And you know who RP was?
Yeah.
Ross Perot, right? And he had 19.5%, 21%, whatever the number was. And in George Bush Sr.'s documentary that was done, it's a great documentary, you got to watch it. The last 2 minutes of the documentary, the guy interviewing him asks a question about Ross Perot. It's the only thing he didn't want to answer. He got upset and walked away. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Highly recommend you watch it.
Yeah.
I think it's actually a very good documentary for you to watch to see exactly what happened with him because I think that time's going to come as well. Let's say if you are chosen as a VP or whatever the role may be, let's say you are the VP. Do you think you could help, since you and RFK have a relationship together, to have RFK potentially, not necessarily, the better word would be to team up, because a lot of the values on what he likes, the left cannot stand him. Even the other day, a story came out, I think last week, talking about the Kennedy family. It's all behind Biden, kind of trying to undermine him. The fact that if your own family cannot support you, why would you support an RFK? They're dividing one of the most powerful Democratic last names, possibly the most powerful Democratic last name we've had the last 80 years, right? 100 years that with Joseph and what he did. What role would you play if you were on the inside to be able to communicate with RFK?
You know, I think that as this election season moves on, and you know, I'm not going to violate any privacy of the conversations that RFK and I have already had about what's going on in the country and how we share many of the same concerns about the direction our country is headed in. If it gets to that point where it appears that RFK's candidacy would help return Joe Biden to the White House, my hope would be that he would recognize that and shift course to make sure that that doesn't happen.
And you think you have enough of a relationship or influence for him to consider that?
We are good friends, but as you know, he is his own person.
Right.
So just like every one of us, you know, I have made a choice in my heart about what is at stake in this election, and as you'll see in the book, For Love of Country, this is what's motivating me. I'm going to be on the road for the rest of the year until the election is done. I'm not getting back to. I was home a few weeks ago, and my mom asked when I was coming back, and I said not until November 6th, because if I can have any impact and influence in sounding the alarm bells to those undecideds, to those disenfranchised Democrats, to those independents who may feel in their heart that things aren't right, but don't have, the intellectual ammunition or the facts or the resources or those shared experiences to help make that decision for them. I'm going to put everything that I have into this election because our country is at stake, and I hope and encourage everyone everywhere to do the same.
So, Rob, can you do me a favor and pull up the VP? Because I know it's a tough question for me to ask, and it's unfair for you to answer it because there's conversations that's been had privately, and you don't want to compromise that because later on it's going to come back, so I respect that.
I just respect relationships
totally get it.
and friendships.
I value that.
Just as you and I have conversations.
And that stays between us as well. That's not conversations I reveal to anybody. Rob, can you do me a favor and pull up the VP Vegas odds? I just want to put this on people that are watching this and thinking about this on the VP candidate. Just pull up the names if you could so the audience can see it. The one from 2024, not 2023. Okay, no, VP Rob, VP odds. The one you showed earlier.
The one you showed earlier, Rob.
Yeah, the one you showed earlier. So if you look at Tim Scott, okay, for those of you that are data-driven and you like math, let's kind of look through this from the math and data standpoint. A VP, Tim Scott, what demo does he help, right? You can pick and choose what demo he helps. There's a demo that Tim Scott does help, right? He's at the plus 450. Fine. Then you have the Kristi Noem demo. She's South Dakota, right?
Yeah.
You have the South Dakota, maybe somebody could say women, governor, experience, kind of stood her ground. One of the first, and I think the only one that didn't shut down at all. Sometimes people put Florida as he shut down for a week or two or a month. Maybe she never shut it down. So you hear those types of stories. You go to J.D. Vance, get it, formidable. Ben Carson, another demo that it hits, calm, collective, doctor, experience, educated, health, COVID. There's a lot of things that he can speak on. Elisa Stefanik really showed up in that one case against a gay, the president of, it's bad for me to say gay because it's the
president's
Claudine Gay.
MIT and
I don't want to offend anybody.
Her last name is Gay.
Congresswoman from New York.
Right.
Yes.
So when she went after, she seemed very strong. When she went after Penn, I think she went Penn, Harvard, and MIT that she went after?
Yep.
You just loved the way that she was imposing herself. So you like that. And then, Rob, if you can pull it back up, you got Haley, who maybe is one of the most loved people in the world.
Sweetheart.
It's just,
Sweetheart.
For some of you guys. By Boeing. Yes, that's right. Good call. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I
forgot the word. You should see her faces. Some of you guys, what do you mean she's one of the most? But believe it or not, she is loved by the establishment. I know whether you like it. And even Chris Cuomo, I'm talking to Chris, is like, hey, Nikki could make a pretty good VP if he wants to go win the establishment vote. But I think a Nikki Haley VP would backfire because the voters, MAGA people may say, are you anti-establishment or are you establishment? You can't kind of pick it there. But if you go to Tulsi, what do you get? I think there's a lot of things there. And I think if this number is 43% number that we're really dealing with, I think Tulsi has probably the most independent people. I think if Tulsi's the VP, Joe Rogan, bingo. Elon Musk, Twitter Spaces, X's, hello. A lot of independents that are maybe willing to go that way, but they don't want to be not invited to the parties. Now they have an out on how to vote for Trump. We know what the out is? So how could you vote for Trump? I'm not really voting for Trump. Trump has Tulsi. It's why I'm voting. I'm voting for Tulsi. Oh, so you're not really voting for Trump. So I'm not really voting for Trump. I'm really voting, yes. Okay, so the 43% now is on the table. So that's why I think strategically you're very formidable and they have to consider you as a top 2, top 3. You know where you are on my list. I just think you need to be they need to consider the role you're going to play. And, sometimes you pick a VP that maybe hasn't had the fight yet. And you hit the stage, Tim Scott hasn't had a big fight yet. Elise Stefanik has shown fight, but not on the debate stage. It's more of a questioning stage, right? Ben Carson has had some of it, but Ben Carson, read the book. I think America the Beautiful, when it came out, I had my entire company read the book. but some studies have shown he could be the cure for insomnia. Nice guy, phenomenal guy, but you know, I'm just not saying anything. You respectful, brilliant guy, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a different kind of an environment.
Yeah.
But here, you just got a lot of check. You have gone up against heavyweights, and you've stood ground. So Hillary, boom. Kamala, boom. So it's almost like I'm not going to have to worry about her going up against anybody to debate. She's going to be hold her own. I'm going to go do my own thing. So anyways, I'm not your manager. I'm not your agent. I'm just somebody that really believes in you, and I hope you're going to be somebody that's going to be considered. And that's why I want to make sure the right argument is being made for you. That's all I want to say out of respect to you.
And look around the world. There's never been a more important time to have a balanced ticket that knows what they're doing with defense and foreign policy.
So, okay, so did you see what Avenatti said on Hannity yesterday? No. Did you guys see what Avenatti said on Hannity yesterday? One person did. What do you think about when you hear the word Michael Avenatti? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear it? What do you hear? Actually, give me the word. What do you hear? I'm going to say it on three. Say it on three. 1, 2, 3.
Scumbag.
All right. Fantastic. That's what Vinny said.
Disbarred.
Rob, can you? Some of you guys are about to be bamboozled by this guy here. Rob, play this clip of what he said on Hannity yesterday. Go for it.
Right now to President Trump, and let me be clear, I disagree with President Trump on about 95% of the issues at a minimum. But one thing he and I agree on, and that is that the politicization of these cases, in this case in particular, is gross, it's uncalled for, and it's flat out wrong. This is an effort to deprive millions of Americans of their choice for president. This guy has been indicted now in 4 cases up and down the entire East Coast. Sean, in this country, we don't have serial killers who are prosecuted at the same time in 4 different cases. The timing is wrong, the case is wrong, and he's not receiving due process.
Guys, this is Michael Avenatti calling in from jail.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to be in jail for 15 years.
Yeah.
This is like Suge Knight calling it, except Michael Avenatti is calling it, right? Hey, what's up, PBD, right?
His cellmate was making the bed in the back. You didn't hear the cellmate?
You could hear the background noise. Right? That wasn't our mic, by the way. That was
wasn't our microphone. That was his cellmate cleaning the bed.
So it's a man who needs a pardon.
So how have we got? It's a man that needs a pardon.
Yeah,
exactly. But by the way, when you hear a guy like this coming out saying this, you know, he was Stormy's lawyer, right? And at one point, I think everybody on the left was thinking he should run for office and be the president.
Oh, the left was.
Oh,
they loved him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he was thinking about it.
All the news, everybody was like, I'd vote for him. They were all on him. On CNN, everybody loved him.
What do you think about what he just said? I mean, again, this is coming from Avenatti.
So you look at those statements. You look at the Avenatti statement. You look at the union leaders' statement. You look at the things that Stephen A. Smith was saying the other day, and then you contrast that with what one of Bobby Kennedy's brothers said when he said Joe Biden is the RFK of our time.
Jeez.
And you look at the kind of stuff that Morning Joe says of, you know, I've never known a greater president, and Joe Biden's at the top of his game. It's just like, it's become comical at this point because the truth is staring us all in the face every single day. Even people who hate Donald Trump are saying like, all right, guys, come on. Like, this is too much, and it's making a mockery of our democracy, and it's undermining our democracy. So as I think that's where the silver lining is in all of this craziness. It is becoming undeniable what the Democrats are doing in abusing their power. And if you stand with them, you are on the wrong side of the country.
I actually think Tom was kind of spot on with this. Because is there anybody less likable and credible than Michael Avenatti? Maybe Michael Cohen at this point. But when he said there's a 95% of the things I disagree with Trump on.
Yeah.
There's a very high likelihood he's probably a good strategist. He's probably looking at the likelihood of Trump being the president. He's like, let me say some nice things about Trump real quick. Maybe I'll catch a pardon or two. Michael Avenatti's in jail for 2 decades, I want to say, for doing some shady things out there. So I think you were spot on here.
We can have a fast flashback here to about 40 minutes ago here in the podcast. Michael Avenatti, forget who he is.
Creepy porn lawyer.
Correct.
That's who he is.
Exactly
he's
right.
He's a creepy porn lawyer.
Are you in a semi-accident? Are you a porn star in
No,
trouble?
he's a creepy porn lawyer, and I don't trust him. Good that he's in jail. But go ahead, Tom.
That's right.
Sorry.
He was correct about one thing. Do we remember when Harvey Weinstein was on trial in New York, And the people of California were told, and the woman that was raped in California was told, we can't start the trial till New York completes its proceedings. Do we remember that? We waited. Avenatti is right. The justice system is putting Trump on trial, not sequentially the way it happens. Hey, when your tax trial is done, you're going to have a civil trial. OJ's trial, his civil trial happened after the criminal trial. But they're stacking all these. This is abuse of the justice system. I have never seen a criminal, and I'm not saying Trump's a criminal. I think he's being wrongly accused, but I've never seen criminals, and now we know, OJ did it. You don't go on trial at the same time and bounce around. You basically, you finish this trial and they said, okay, Weinstein guilty, he's going to go to jail for a long time. What did the people of California say? We're still putting him on trial here. So get your butt to California. Now we're going to do trial here next. It's never been in parallel.
Were you getting to a question or what?
No, I was saying what Avenatti was saying was right. Forget that he's Michael Avenatti for all of his
creepy
Avenatti-ness.
porn lawyer, Tom. Just creepy porn lawyer.
He should have ended it right when Vinny had said it.
Creepy porn lawyer.
Look, but the point that he's making is, maybe he's got a point. Maybe he's trying to get the what do you call it? The pardon. But either way, if he's got a point, he's got a point. We'll see what's going to happen there. It seems like whatever porn star he supported, you didn't like. Maybe if it was someone else,
what's your beef with Stormy?
Maybe it wasn't your person, and that's the mistake he made. But Tom, can you give us an update with today? I don't know if you guys saw what the stock market. Anybody watch the market today? Did you see how the stock market did today? It's been a rough day for the stock market. Tom, what are some of the numbers came up to the stock, the reason why the market reacted the way that it did?
Yeah, today was a day of reality, right? Oh, the stock market is up. Bidenomics is working. Life is good, right? We keep being told that by the mainstream media with a straight face, right? This morning, GDP, that's how are we growing? How fast are we growing? Grew at 1.6% for the first quarter. They were expecting 2.5%. That's not good. Personal consumption, consumer personal consumption was up 2.5%. We expected to be up 3%. And the U.S. consumers, give us all a round of applause. We've set a new record. Credit card debt is just shy now of $1.2 trillion, which is the highest it's been since they were keeping track of it starting in 1999. So maybe consumers aren't spending because they're a little tapped out. And then the PCE price index today was 3.7% versus 3.4%. Let's just translate that. That's core inflation for you and me. That's gasoline, that's groceries, that's basics. So all of those came out today that said we're growing less, we're in debt more, consumers, not just America, because it goes without saying that America's in sort of permanent mammoth debt. And personal consumption is down, and inflation is now ticking up again. I think this is something all Americans knew, but now the stock market got it right in the face this morning, and that's what the market did. The market went down, and there's a lot of response to that. What do you think, right? If you were in the Oval Office and you were there today, Mr. President, this is what we need to do. America's hurting. What do we need to do here? Because now the headlines are over. We have real numbers this morning.
There's a lot of things that can be done within the government to. We're broken.
Is the mic working
here.
or no?
No. Does she have a microphone?
This is fantastic.
Just give her a microphone.
Tom, this is just a beautiful thing here. What do you want to do, buddy?
Let's give her a mic.
Give her a microphone.
You want to just have a handheld, or are we going to switch?
No, it's okay. They'll give me a hand. I think they'll give me a handheld.
Here, but just give her this for right now.
Yeah, give her that for right now. Just flip that. There we go. There we go.
The first thing that I think of when you bring this up is the endless spend. You just mentioned it briefly, but our country's deficit and where we are sending, what was it, $95 billion in that package that was just passed recently?
Yeah.
Over 60, clearly over $60 billion going to Ukraine. Again, no accountability, no basic questions being answered, like what are you trying to accomplish with this money? How will it serve our best interest? How does it help bring about an end to this war? None of these things. The bar for that now seems to be, well, hey, we've got to hurry up and get this out there because it will help stave off Ukrainians' loss. So we're at a very different place now in their justifying this, and they're trying to sell this whole package as an American jobs and economic boost package. So now Joe Biden has basically said to the American people, we're going to improve the economy by continuing to fund more wars around the world. There are so many layers of this, of how we can help encourage small businesses, how we can help invest more in our communities, how we can reduce regulation. My home state of Hawaii, an independent group just did a study about the high cost of living there. Single family home under the federal affordable housing definition is $750,000. People don't make that much money in Hawaii. I think the average median income is around 65 or 70 grand a year. But what this study found was over half of those costs is because of government bureaucracy and overregulation. So there's a lot that can be done directly at the federal level to be able to help provide the kind of boost in our economy we actually need, and really to grow our confidence in our own economy. And you look at all the things that we're talking about now, it's no surprise that people are losing that kind of confidence that we are or can be soon in a good place.
Tulsi, picking up on Tom's question with the economy, I'm looking at the market right now. Dow's down, S&P's down, Nasdaq's down. But what's up today? Bitcoin. Yeah. A year ago, you spoke at the Miami Bitcoin conference. This year, it's in Nashville. And then the next day, you were on PBD podcast with myself and PBD. The importance of Bitcoin, the importance of crypto, the importance of being a libertarian, the importance of being sort of detached from the bureaucracy, the crypto space, even central bank digital currencies, that's a major conversation. Yeah. You spoke at length for like an hour. It was an amazing session, round of applause, people going crazy. With inflation running rampant, everything economy. What are your thoughts on that in regard to the economy?
You know what, when we go back, and I think more of our leaders need to do this, and just more of us in our society, is go back and reread the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Federalist Papers, and get a better understanding of what our founders envisioned for our country. They very directly pointed out and recognized that power is the enemy of liberty. And what we are seeing now is those in power see a free people as a threat to their power. And so when we look at the central bank digital currency, and no matter how many times they tell us like, oh, don't worry, this will have the same privacy as you get with your banks, but if you spend more than $600 on Venmo, then we'll know about it. If you go and buy, according to Elizabeth Warren, wants to know every time you go and buy ammunition from, Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever, they will find those criteria that they deem as quote unquote suspicious activity to be able to know how we're spending our money. And then you take that to the next level of, okay, well, now they want to be able to control how we spend our money through a central bank digital currency. All of this just points to the reason why people support Bitcoin, why people support having an independent, transparent form of currency that is not under government control. And this, again, I just keep coming back to, why do elections matter? Why do our votes matter? Well, we need to have people in power in our government from both parties, frankly, who are open-minded, who will listen, who will better understand what's going on in the crypto space. Bring people in who actually know about Bitcoin. I met a bunch of people at that conference who were able to share things with me who know far more than I ever will about Bitcoin, but all of these different applications of blockchain and how we can use them to increase integrity in our elections, to increase transparency in our government. There's so much there that people in Washington know nothing about, and because of that, we're seeing the reaction that we're seeing by most leaders in Washington, which is, well, if we can't control it. President Obama spoke about this recently too, how concerned he is about Bitcoin because the government can't control it.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
Do you still think it's the famous phrase, it's the economy stupid, to quote James Carville? Like, Democrats are clearly running on abortion and women's rights. It's like, Pat's going to show you a ridiculous video that Gavin Newsom put out. The democracy, the freedom, the immigration, the border. I don't care where you're on, left or right, the border's a mess. Do you still think the economy is the number one issue that people are going to vote on?
Yes, I do. I think that it's the economy, and it's also increasingly more and more parents concerned about their children. And whether we're talking about education, drag queens in kindergarten. I think you maybe talked recently about someone saying that kids as young as 3 years old now know what their gender identity is.
That's right.
That was on Dr.
Lady
Phil,
from
I
Dr.
wanna
Phil's
say, yeah.
Exactly.
skit we showed.
Exactly. I mean, the whole idea of all of us being able to live free and make up our own minds on how we choose to live our lives, how we want to raise our kids, what we want to do with our profession, we are losing all of that. And I think that more people are realizing that.
Tulsi, do you think maybe we are naive and maybe we're not as advanced as some of you guys are? You've been in the military 21 years, Lieutenant Colonel. Do you think our enemies, Iran, Russia, and China, maybe our generals and our army and our politicians think one of the ways to intimidate them is by having more transgenders as soldiers? Because maybe there's some strategy behind it that we don't know about, right? Is there like I'm curious. Can you show that picture? Because I mean, if you're Iran, if you're China, if you're Russia, you see this picture. Oh my God, I don't want to go war against these guys.
Is this the same person?
No. The guy on the right is just a drag queen, but I'm telling you guys right now, the guy on the left
by the way,
scares
there's
me.
plenty of drag queen soldiers right now in the military.
Oh, they're doing TikTok videos.
That's why I asked.
Yes.
I have seen some of those side by
They
side.
walk
Is this strategic? Is this strategic to scare Putin, to scare Xi, to scare Raisi, Khamenei?
No. I felt like I should have made a joke there, but you were so serious. And it is a serious problem. It is a very serious problem when we have leaders within our own ranks of the Department of Defense, and obviously I've served with and know so many people who are just the greatest Americans, who've chosen to wear the uniform, who've chosen to go and deploy to different parts of the world to put their lives on the line in service to our country. And when we have, so there is a distinction between the policymakers who are civilians. We have a civilian-led military, and those who are going in and putting on the uniform and doing the work every single day. When you have many of those civilians who care more for the DEI metrics or for what the headlines will say or for creating some illusion of inclusivity, or even going back to the very beginning of Secretary Austin's tenure, where within a few short months of him assuming that role, all of a sudden declaring there's an epidemic of white supremacy in the military, whatever happened to that? There was a huge stand down. This is a huge emergency all across the military. We've got to make sure that we're identifying and rooting out white supremacy. Maybe I missed it, but I don't recall ever seeing proof or evidence of this baseless accusation that he made. Over 21 years, I've served with service members from all branches of the military, from all parts of the country, and everywhere I have ever served, there have been people from all walks of life, from social class, from a race standpoint, from a religious standpoint. And yeah, we'll give each other a hard time. You give each other crap, as one does. But when it comes right down to it, there's been no question in my mind that in the heat of battle, we are willing to lay down our lives for the very same country that we love. That's what it comes down to, and you fight for the man and woman to your left and right. To see how out of touch those leaders are and how they're prioritizing resources, not towards making sure that our troops have everything they need to be ready to fight today, but to pleasing the so-called woke mobs is causing harm. It is causing harm to us as a country and to the culture in the military. And then they throw their hands up and say, well, how come nobody wants to join the military? How come we're having a hard time with retention? The problems run very deep, but can be fixed with strong leadership that has the right priorities of putting our country first and making sure that our service members are actually valued and cared for.
Yeah, I don't know if they're experiencing that right now where they're being treated as heroes, but you're right. When you're in the military, you were Air Force.
I was in the Air Force.
One of the things, you were Airman of the Year. Yep. You know, Vinny saluted Tulsi. By the way, she told me, she says, Vinny knew how to salute perfectly, right?
It was perfect.
Yeah, she was giving you a shout out.
Knife hands.
One thing about the military, if you have thin skin, you're not going to make it long term. Because if you got thick skin, you're going to be able to make it. I want to read the story to you. For how many guys here run businesses? Raise your hand if you run a business. How many guys run a small business? You do over $1 million a year, top line revenue per year. Okay, so check this out. Some good news for you guys. Some very good news for you guys from President Biden. Biden capital gains rate proposal is to go from 23.9% to 44.6%, according to Forbes. Much has been made of President Biden's proposal in the budget of the United States government fiscal year 2025 to raise capital gains rates. The number being bandied about is 44.6, which would be the highest formal federal capital gains since its inception. That rate comes from many caveats. The source of the 44.6 is a footnote from the general explanation of administration fiscal year 2025 revenue proposal, and it reads, relevant part, a separate proposal will be raised the top ordinary income. You guys ready for top ordinary income? 39.6%. An additional proposal would increase the net investment income rate by 1.2% for people making over $400,000 together. The proposal would increase the top marginal rate on long-term capital gains to 44.6. The marginal proposal would lend context to the above-mentioned separate proposal is to raise the long-term capital gains and qualified dividends rates to 37% for taxpayers with taxable income above $1 million. Tom, how is this a good idea?
In no universe that I'm familiar with is this a good idea.
Why would they do it at a time like this, thinking this is going to be attractive to small business owners in America?
Because we got to do something about the billionaires.
You know,
you think that's really what it is?
No, I think so. I think this is a populist line, right? Tax the rich. And this line, $1 million, tax the rich. What they don't know is a plumber in New York with 4 trucks has got a business worth $1.5 million. Yeah. They don't understand that. I honestly think the policymakers are so woefully out of touch on these issue of what the tax code really impacts and who it impacts. They sit around saying, remember, don't worry about it. Nobody who makes less than $400,000 will be touched. Remember, that was the Biden thing. Don't worry about it. Nobody under 400 grand. And then there was 2 people in New York and says, wait a minute, honey, you're a plumber with 3 trucks. I'm a school teacher. Didn't we make $420 last year? But give 55% to the state tax, state tax, and federal tax in New York? Isn't that what we did? Yeah, it is. So he is going to tax us. They're out of touch with it. And this is a populist move here, trying to make it sound like we're only going after the rich. But a person that sells a business that they've been working on for 15 years, what if this example, that plumber sells his business because there's no children, or the children are not interested in inheriting the business.
Yeah.
So dad is going to retire, sell this to the next person, sells his business for $5 million, and a business that he's worked on for probably at that point 35 years of his life now is going to get taxed at 44% on capital gains. And he better not live in New York, because the state will come after another 12%. So that will be almost 60% going in taxes. Thank you very much for making jobs and being a neighborhood plumber with 3-4 trucks in the city of New York and selling your business to somebody else who wanted to keep, Fred and Sons Plumber working in Queens.
Tom, I'm actually disappointed, because I'm all for it, because how else are we supposed to give hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine? Do you not care about Ukraine? That money is we're supposed to tax
Ukraine
more
first,
to
Vinny.
send money to Ukraine, to Israel,
Ukraine
to Taiwan.
First.
Because, Tom, it's about them. It's not about us.
We can't just print it and sell T-bills to China.
I mean...
wait. I'm sorry.
PBD, I have a question. I have a question for you on this, because we were talking about this in the back. Because I remember we were having this conversation debate in 2020, 4 years ago, on the podcast, when they were pitching these ideas and none of it really happened. And I said, well, what's the difference this time around? And you go, well, now he's actually the president.
Yeah.
He was just a candidate last time. So we've seen AOC literally sell tax the rich shirts. Some people started selling tax the bitch shirts. That's a whole nother conversation.
Way better
Even at Biden's State of the Union address, what was it, 2 months ago? Where his numbers have gone up since then, when he was yelling and everybody even yelled at the Supreme Court.
He doesn't remember
One
it
of his
happened.
guests was the guy Sean Fain, who, if you're not familiar with him, he's the head of the UAW, which was the trade union, the
Auto Workers Union.
United
Auto
Auto
Workers Union,
right.
exactly. United Auto Workers Union of all the, and
They
if
and
you
the
just look
Teamsters
at
are
any of his
cornerstones of
videos, he has
Democrat
simply
voters.
come out and said that billionaires should not exist. Biden, everything, there he is right there. What can happen this time around, now that Biden is the president, to these capital gains tax?
you have to know the IPO market has been so dry the last, 2 years? We've had nothing with 23, nothing with 24. You want to propose this for 2025. Guys that are now thinking about selling their business, they're now not going to do that in 2025, extended to 2026, 2027. And then at the same time, you know, he says he's a capitalist, yet they just announced, did you guys hear about the new FTC rule with non-competes? Who heard about the whole non-compete thing? That effectively the non-compete thing is now being a federal thing, not state. It was always left to the state. Did you hear about this or no? The FTC is announcing officially non-competes are no longer enforceable. That can you pull this up, Rob? Yeah, FTC votes. Can you pull it up, please? You just did. FTC votes to ban non-compete agreements. This is not state. This is FTC. Federal. And the way they spin it is saying creating these elimination of non-competes creates 8,500 new small business owners. Okay? So businesses are now not protected. Screw my guy, I'm going to go do this, take everything away from him. You can no longer sue me. Now the small business owner is not protected. So now some people, because back in the days, a lot of people wanted to start businesses. Now you're sitting there saying, why the hell would I start a business? So first of all, I start a business. I work my ass off training this guy for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. Then the non-compete doesn't protect me. He leaves and starts a company and attacks me, takes my business. I can't protect my business.
Steals
and
your
on top
customer
of that,
list.
and I'm paying 60% now all in taxes if I'm in California or New York, and you want to raise my capital gains. This goes back to the story. I'm in LA. I'm going to Wood Ranch. Do you remember this, babe, where the picture of the girl that was on all the buses, the realtor, and we're at Wood Ranch. I see her face. Say, hey, Patrick, how are you? I said, what do you do? She says, I said, you're the real estate girl. She says, yes. I used to be the real estate girl. I said, how come we don't see your faces anymore on the buses and the benches? She says, because my husband and I sat down and we did math. And after realizing California, you're paying 57% with all these gas taxes, state taxes, all these Obama stuff taxes that they have, we realized it just doesn't make sense for me to work. I decided to stay home. Why pay 57% in taxes? We lowered our lifestyle. We don't want to have that big of a lifestyle anymore. We've compromised a lot of this stuff. These types of behaviors eliminates innovators, job creators, capitalists, and it's literally giving the middle finger to all the business owners that are creating jobs. Thinking being a business owner is such an easy job. Do you know how hard it is to be somebody that owns a trucking company today? Do you know how hard these transportation companies are being beat up today, being down 70%? Do you know how loan officers, mortgage guys are doing today where their refi business is down 85%? Do you know how tough it is right now to run a lot of your business? And knowing the fact that $1 trillion of corporate debt is about to come up to refinance. So I was doing it at 3%. Now it's going to be at 8%. What is the 5% on $1 trillion, additional $50 billion in interest I have to pay? There's so many different things. So you hurt the small business owner. You hurt a lot of people. I'll never forget this. When we were running, and I told the story at SLS, when we were in Dallas, you'll remember it because I just told the story. And Tom, I think you'll remember this as well. In our office in Dallas, a lot of support, 70% of our employees would be on the left. They're Democrats. And this is 2016. Trump, he's going through his thing. They cannot stand Trump. They hate Trump. They cannot stand the guy. The conversations will be happening in the office. He can't be the president, all this other stuff. So he gets elected. And I think he lowers capital gains from, from 39 to like 23%. Do you remember that when he lowered the capital gains from, it was 35 to 23 or something like that?
The Bush tax cuts, yeah.
Yes, so I invite all my employees to my office. I say, guys, come to my office, emergency meeting. Everybody in my office, this is the day after Trump won. I say, guys, how do you feel about what happened yesterday? I can't believe it, it's the end of the world. I'm pissed off. I said, well, I just want to kind of share something with you guys because we got some good news. What's that? Well, now that he's getting elected, he's going to lower capital gains. And what we've decided to do as a company is to give $100 to anybody that's been working for the company per month. So if you've been here for 11 months, it's an $1,100 bonus we're passing over to you. Everyone's getting $100 for every month you've been with the company. And because we're passing some of the tax savings over to you guys. Oh my God, this is so awesome. This is so great. I said, but there's one caveat. What's that? You need to go tweet, thank you, Trump. I said, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But the point is, I explained to them the reason why you must pay attention to elections is because the more money goes to the small business owner, the more money he can invest into you. And the more you want it to go to the government, all you're telling the world is you trust politicians that they can do better with your money than free enterprise small business owners. That's what you trust. You know what's the difference between competing in politics and competing in free enterprise? Competing in politics, say you all of a sudden like, hey guys, shit, we ran out of $100 billion. What do we do? Johnny, print another billion. Yeah. Print another 100 billion. In a small business owner, you run out of $600,000. Guess what you do? Johnny, what's that? We're filing bankruptcy. Yeah. You don't get to do that in politics. So I don't know if this is a good idea they're doing. I think their timing is terrible. And we're going to see, I hope a lot of small business owners are paying attention to this, because when you're a small business owner, nobody cares if you're white, black, Hispanic, Asian, young, New Yorker, Christian, atheist, Muslim, it does not matter. High capital gains taxes affect every small business owner, especially the way they're setting it up.
I just want to say, number one, what an awesome story from PBD. Respect to you from that, because those are the types of stories that the average employee has to experience. You know, you always say more is caught than taught. When someone catches a check for $1,100 or $1,500 or $500 or $2,000, all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, this capital gains thing, all right. Because if you're making $50,000 a year, even $100,000 a year, the chances of you even learning what a capital gains tax is non-existent. Vinny, what's a capital gains tax?
I concur.
He doesn't fucking know. But the point is, but he's going to be rich soon. But
I love you too.
That's why we love Vinny. But we've seen what happens when a business owner
This
doesn't
is why
do
Vinny
that.
gets more Manect.
Yes.
Yeah, this is what happens, right?
He needs it.
People call and Manect Vinny for financial advice.
Yes.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yes. By the way,
this is egregious, but I'm going to keep going with it.
Your constituents love you.
Constituents.
By the way, I also take hate messages on Manect for anyone that wants to. But that's what I respect
we'll
about you.
We'll give you the opportunity to get
Thank
that.
you. There's plenty of time. But we also see the reverse of that when they don't do what PBD does, when they do what every other major corporation did when they do the stock buybacks. We see what's happened with Boeing. Freaking disaster right now when they do the stock buybacks. But what people don't understand about capital gains is it's oftentimes the last 10% that you would typically give to the government that you use to invest into your company or into R&D or into a new product. And at the end of the day, who do you trust more? The government with your money or with an entrepreneur? I think we all know the answer to that.
And I think one of the things, too, to pay attention to as these tax conversations come up that really points to the mindset of those in government. When you hear Joe Biden, a lot of the Democrats talk about taxes, they always use the word revenue. Well, we're going to raise taxes because we can bring in X amount higher of revenue, et cetera, et cetera. And I've always had a problem with that because of what that means about how they see us. That we exist to generate quote unquote revenue for big government. We exist to serve their existence and their ends rather than what it's supposed to be, which is a limited government that exists to serve the needs of and empower the ability for us to live as individuals in our society. And that mindset, I think, is so important to point out because it's what drives their decision and the why. Like, why would they be doing this now? They are completely disconnected. They say, well, yeah, we've got this opportunity. Whether it's politically smart or not, I think is a different conversation. But they see, okay, yeah, well, if people are doing better under Biden economics, then we've got an opportunity to be able to raise more revenue to be able to pay for Vinny's bigger spending bill to go overseas.
Seriously, it's a great point, by the way. That is one way where it's kind of like, well, let's get money from these rich people because we can do good with the money that's coming to us. Sometimes the voter forgets that they work for you.
That's
Remember
right.
this. Sometimes voters forget that you pay their salaries, not the other way around.
Right.
You pay for their salaries. Right. The voters have to understand this concept. You hold them accountable. You sit there and you watch the person that you're paying the highest salary for, and he goes like this. Pause.
That was so...
Pause.
4 more years.
Pause. 4 more years of pause.
Yeah.
Pause. Somebody, by the way, you know what they should do? Somebody should sell a shirt. 4 more years. Pause. Right?
Have you guys seen that video?
I didn't see it. I didn't see
I just saw it today.
Who has no clue what I'm talking
You
about?
have to play this video.
This is yesterday. Go ahead, Rob.
He's
Go ahead.
ready.
Guys,
He's ready.
Tell me, he reads.
Imagine what we can do next. 4 more years.
Hold on. Do it again, Vid. Oh, right.
So what, he's speaking, or is he speaking right now?
No. Rob, go back.
Go back. We can't see it.
Imagine what we can do next. 4 more years. Pause.
He read the teleprompter.
Oh no!
Yeah, you can't make this up.
In charge.
Oh my
He's
God.
in charge.
Oh my gosh!
But by the way, Tulsi, we've all read off teleprompters
Not
before.
like that.
We've all read off teleprompters.
Oh
To
my
not know what
gosh.
pause means in a teleprompter
I had
is
not
so
seen
ridiculous.
this.
Yeah. Don't piss
Tulsi,
your pants.
you're doing great.
Just
Pause.
when we think there's a low,
PBD.
there's a new low.
Wait, where's my teleprompter here?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tulsi. Insane.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a proud
There's
moment.
so much that's wrong with that.
Yeah.
That, you know, I've been to these campaign rallies before, you know. Generally, if you hope people might come up with that themselves,
Yeah, I know.
and that you're not the guy at the thing reading the teleprompter having to prompt the crowd
Oh my
to.
God.
For what it's worth, I mean, we
man.
have to identify. Yeah, everybody has different heroes, right? I don't know who your hero was as a kid. Vinny, who was your hero as a kid? Who's your hero?
As a kid?
Yeah, who's your hero? Everybody. Who was your hero as a kid?
My mom.
Your mom. Who did you say? Logan Paul. Who else? Who's your hero?
Logan Paul.
He said
Wow.
Logan Paul. Who else is your hero?
Buddy, you need better heroes, guy.
Who's your hero? Say their names. Who's your hero? Bruce Lee. Who else?
The Asian guy.
The Asian guy
Go.
says Bruce Lee.
Can you say your heroes' names? Who? Muhammad Ali. Who else?
Nice.
Michael Jordan. Who else? Vinny. Who else? Okay, Derek Jeter. Maybe. And there's nothing, we can't judge because everybody's entitled for their heroes. What if his hero is Ron Burgundy? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? What is up with all these judgments that you're passing on to a president that his hero is Ron Burgundy?
Go F
Stay
yourself,
classy,
San Diego.
Al.
Exactly.
Stay classy, San
Honestly,
Diego.
that highlights the biggest issue between Trump and Biden. Trump, he can't stay on script. He goes off, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Biden is literally reading the script.
I'm telling you, this
Ron
is
Burgundy style.
And he said it was
Punch
such
you right in the
emphasis.
baby maker, didn't he?
4 more. No, he first said 4 more years.
4 more years.
Then he
Pause.
said pause. And then 5 seconds later, I messed up. Listen, but by the way, I want to say this, guys. If any one of us ever runs for office, we're going to make dumb mistakes as well. There's going to be some moments where you're going to have embarrassment. No one's going to be free, but there's a part of this that, you know, you choose to have a job like that, and some of us get a chance to laugh at you. We've had some embarrassing moments as well. But if you read the word pause, the level of embarrassment is slightly higher than other moments. I just want to make sure we qualify and quantify the level of embarrassments we have in life. Now, let's do another one.
Okay.
Let's talk about this guy from California, right? Who is, he's loved by the left. He's Bill Maher's favorite. He's somebody that the left would love to actually run for office today instead of Joe Biden, and that's the governor of California. His name is Gavin Newsom, right? Gavin Newsom. And Gavin Newsom just came out with a campaign video for what Alabama did to put the fear of abortion, which is a topic that's going to be the 2024 topic. Rob, go ahead and play this clip. This is not a parody. I want to make sure you guys know this.
Parody for you guys that don't.
If you didn't watch the Antonio Brown interview, this is not a parody. This is an actual ad that Newsom just tweeted out. Enjoy this.
Oh my God.
We're almost there. You're gonna make it.
Oh no.
Trump Republicans want to criminalize young Alabama women who travel for reproductive care.
Watch this.
Miss, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle, take a pregnancy test.
What the?
Stop them by taking action at righttotravel.org. Campaign for Democracy Group is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Again, this is not a parody.
Yes.
This is fear porn is what it is, right? But Gavin Newsom is into fear porn is what this is. What do you think about when you see something like this?
You know, you kind of hope that people would have the same reaction that we had in just like, this is so insane and outrageous and outside of the realm of the real world that we see it for what it is, that you automatically assume like, okay, what's the joke? What's the punchline here? But they do this because they know that there will be people who believe it, who either believe it's already happening, people who live in the heart of Los Angeles, who've never been to Alabama in their lives, who don't know people who don't think the way that they think, who will fall for this. And this is what one of the many things that is most concerning about what they're doing.
What was your reaction, by the way, when you saw this? What's your reaction?
Yeah.
Can you, like, it's the first reaction to me was, who sent it to me? David, where's David at? David sent it to me. What did I ask you? I says, this a
Babylon
joke.
B or
and you know
something.
what he said? He says, I don't know. So even he's like, then I go and I look, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. He tweeted this out because what he sent to me wasn't directly from him. It's actually unbelievable, right? When you see an approach like this they're taking. However, Trump did come out recently and share his position on abortion. Rob, if I'm not mistaken, what was the position he took? He said
I think
4
he said
months?
16 weeks, I want to say.
4 months, right? 16
Yeah.
weeks, right?
Whereas DeSantis said 6 weeks, which is insane. A lot of people say.
Rob, do you have the clip? Okay, go for it, Rob, if you want to play this.
Many people have asked me what my position is on abortion and abortion rights, especially since I was proudly the person responsible for the ending of something that all legal scholars, both sides, wanted and, in fact, demanded be ended. Roe v. Wade. They wanted it ended. It must be remembered that the Democrats are the radical ones on this position because they support abortion up to and even beyond the 9th month. The concept of having an abortion in the later months and even execution after birth, and that's exactly what it is. The baby is born, the baby is executed after birth, is unacceptable, and almost everyone agrees with that.
Where do you stand with abortion?
Well, I think the latest thing that Trump talked about was that by getting rid of Roe v. Wade, you send it to the states. You send it to the states to decide, which is the appropriate action that I think should have been taken. You know, the politicization of this issue is really the problem. And I think even Ruth Bader Ginsburg talked about this before she passed away, is that Supreme Court justices were very often being selected based on where they stood on this issue, when they should not be used as political pawns. That Supreme Court should not be politicized. And so I supported that position and that change that was made. This, you know, going back to that ad that Gavin Newsom has put out, there's a reason why they're doing this. It's not because that is a very real threat of actually happening. It's because they're trying to distract voters away from the wide open borders that we have with people. I was in San Diego recently, going and spent 2 days at the border, went to various points along the wall, saw the different holes in the wall, talked to illegal immigrants, hundreds and hundreds of them over those 2 days, 48 hours that I was there at the border, who are running this through like clockwork, walking through, flying into Tijuana from countries all over the world. I talked to them and asked them, where did you come from? How did you get here? Well, I came here from Egypt. I came here from Colombia. I came here from Turkmenistan. I came here from all these different countries. You fly into Tijuana, you walk across the border, you know exactly where to go for Border Patrol to pick you up. They pick you up, they take you in, they process you. Within 24 hours, you have a paid ticket to go anywhere in the country. They want to distract away from the very real issues that most voters are concerned about. The economy, it's the border, it's education, it's crime in our streets. And so they use these as fear-mongering tools to try to divide us and try to make people afraid of something that frankly isn't real. I think that's the most concerning thing that everyone needs to keep their eyes open about, as they see, because this is just going to be the first of many different things that comes up around this national election that'll be taking place. They don't want us to see the truth about what they're doing.
Some Democratic strategists may say, Tulsi, I think this is a very important issue because if you look at the red wave that Kevin McCarthy was expecting, and he would have still been the Speaker of the House, that ended up not being the case because a couple weeks prior to that is when they pushed Roe v. Wade and, 6-3 or whatever the number was, Supreme Court, and it was gone. And the timing of it, some blame Mitch McConnell because Mitch McConnell did not want a majority because he wanted to be a little bit closer with the red wave not coming. So then that happens. They barely win. Then there's a fight. Marjorie Greene Taylor, what's his name, Matt Gaetz, and all this stuff that's going on. And then McCarthy's out, now the new guy's in. So meaning the Democrats may say, I don't know. I think abortion is a big topic for 2024, and it is something that we have to touch on. Do you think Trump's handling of this topic is going to be in a way where it's going to be a non-issue, or do you think they're still going to find a way to pin Roe v. Wade being gone on Trump?
I don't know exactly how this is going to play out, but again, I don't have any doubt that they will try to weaponize and politicize this issue to fearmonger in order to make it so Joe Biden will not have to be held to account for his record. They're terrified of his record, so they'll look for any excuse to try to distract voters away from it, because on whether you're looking at domestic policy or you're looking at foreign policy, when you take the emotions out of the equation and you look at Donald Trump next to Joe Biden, and again, and you've talked about this before on your show, these are not unknown quantities. For the first time in a really long time, we know exactly who these people are, and they both have records that can be shown side by side. They're terrified that voters will actually see that, and so they will absolutely try to use this. Whether or not it works, we'll see. But again, this is why it's so important for truth tellers to be out there. Every one of us, not just people who have podcasts, but every one of us in our own sphere of influence, making sure that we are letting people know what's actually going on in the country, not allow ourselves to be manipulated, which is exactly what this is. People talk about manipulation with our election. That's what's happening here, and we can't allow ourselves to fall for it.
Well, speaking of manipulation, that ad, there's people who are going to, with common sense, they're going to look at that and be like, step out of the car, let's see if you're pregnant. They're going to be like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And then there's 50% of the country,
California.
They're going to be like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's true.
The cops wants to know if I'm pregnant. What'd I do last night?
Yeah.
Like, legit, they don't run that ad and spend tens of millions of dollars for a parody, or a parody, as Pat likes to say. Yeah. I firmly believe this is pretty controversial. I firmly believe that only women can have babies. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, Vinny,
you
I know.
What was so funny there?
It's crazy what's going on, but, I just did a big interviews with all these models at Model Volleyball. Tough job.
Here we go.
And I asked them, you can watch the clips. You can watch the clips on Saucecast.
I'm kind of cool and I hang out with a lot of hot girls, but whatever. Listen,
yeah,
so
that's
the other
neither
day,
here nor there.
Not a big deal. I don't know. People like females these days, but it's kind of a thing.
I'll be here if you need me.
But I asked these women straight up, like, what's your number one issue? These are people who vote. Are you planning on voting? Are you voting? These are people who, they're women, they vote. Yeah. What's your number one issue? To a woman, boom, bing, 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 everyone said abortion, abortion, abortion. Every single one of these women. So the Democratic Party used to be, the working man and unions. It's all women at this point. So this is what's going on. You're about to see those ads right there, times 100. The closer you get to election, it's going to be 2 ads. Book it, write it down now. Abortion type stuff, getting arrested if you're across the state lines, or January 6 ads. That's all they got. Yeah.
Were you waiting for a reaction or just?
I want Tulsi to say yes. I do believe that women have babies.
I do believe that women have babies.
That's right. Thank you, Tulsi.
It's not actually based on belief. It's based on fact and science and so on and so on.
Told you, Vinny.
But this is when you were talking about that, I was transported back to a moment on the 2020 Democrat debate stage when, and I always get this mixed up, but there was one of the other candidates running for president who was talking about abortion rights for trans men.
Yes.
You support that?
No.
But I always feel like which one is which. But anyway, the point, who was that? I think it was
Amy Klobuchar?
Julian Castro.
Oh, Julian Castro.
San Antonio, the brothers.
Yes.
One of the twins.
Yes.
San Antonio.
I remember that moment distinctly because I was there on the stage. I was like, "What are you talking about?
We have to protect the pregnant
What
trans
happened
men.
to
You
that
have
guy?
to do it.
What happened to him? Is he still around or is he?
He's pregnant now, ironically.
Is
It's
he
crazy.
really? Makes
How
sense.
did that happen?
Makes sense because he believes it's possible.
Horrible.
By the way, again, we got 30 minutes left before we wrap up. For some of you guys that are watching this right now, for those of you guys that are watching, Tulsi's got a book coming out that you can order. We're going to put a link below for Love of Country. Again, go if you support what she's doing. The way you could do it is by every single one of you watching this, go order the book so we can make it #1. And if that happens, more people want to see what she has to say. piss off the enemy, if you're not happy with what they're doing, go order a book. Put the link below, Rob, in the chat, in the comment, in the description. Place the order. It's almost like a way of giving the middle finger to the people you don't like that don't want to give the mic to her. If we make her number one, they have to put the mic in front of her, show the support by ordering her book.
Thank you.
Anyways.
Thank you.
Secondly, for some of you guys that are watching this, and I'm seeing the questions you got for Tulsi, great. Easiest way to do it, she's on Connect. First 50 people that go ask her a question on Connect, if it hasn't already reached it, we're going to send a signed copy of her newest book to you. That's the QR code. Use your phone. Go on there. Download the app. Ask the question. And then the first 50 people that are doing a Connect in America will send you a signed copy. Now, I want to ask you a question about this little bit of a civil war going on in the Republican Party, okay? And this guy named Tucker Carlson, which I don't know if you know who he is or not. He's kind of a big deal.
A little bit about him.
Yeah, and he's a guy that is another one of those guys, part of the community that people like him a lot. And he's also a guy that knows how to get under people's skin, okay? Whether he does it intentionally or not, he kind of knows how to piss people off. He's on the show with this other guy that you like a lot and you're friends with. His name is Joseph Rogan. So they're on this podcast, they're talking. And Rob, if you can pull up this clip, there's this topic that comes up about nuclear, I don't know if you saw this, Japan. Go ahead and play this clip, Rob. Go for it.
Well, you could say the same about the atomic bomb, right?
Yes, you could.
And you could say that we have to develop it like Oppenheimer felt before the Nazis did.
I love that. How'd that work? How'd that work?
Well,
I love, by the way, that people on my side, I'll just admit it, on the right, have spent the last 80 years defending dropping nuclear weapons on civilians. Like, are you joking?
Right.
That's just like prima facie evil.
Yeah.
If you can't, if we hadn't done that, then this, that, the other thing, that was actually a great savings. Like, no, it's wrong to drop nuclear weapons on people. And if you find yourself arguing that it's a good thing to drop nuclear weapons on people, then you are evil. Like, it's not a tough one, right? It's not a hard call for you. It's not a hard call for me. So with that in mind, like, why would you want nuclear weapons? It's like just a mindless, childish sort of intellectual exercise to justify, like, oh no, it's really good because someone else will get it. How about no? How about like spending all of your effort to prevent this from happening? Would you kill baby Hitler, famously?
Right.
So I don't know why we're sitting back and allowing this to happen if we really believe it will extinguish the human race or enslave the human race. Like, how can that be good?
Is that the end of it? Rob, can you pull up the tweet? So that's his position, right? I want to hear your position. You live in Hawaii, all this other stuff. So there's kind of history behind it. So what other reaction do you have to it, Rob? Tell me which one you got, because there's a ton of them. Pick one of them. Just let me know which one you got. We'll pull it up.
That was a great For those of you who haven't heard that conversation yet, it's fascinating. They cover a lot of ground.
They cover a lot of ground. It is so entertaining. Probably the best conversation of the year, those two being together. I thought it was fascinating. Rob, maybe pull up the tweet of Jeremy Boring. With Jeremy Boring, the co-founder, founder of Daily Wire, he had the following to say about it. He says, people who deny the moon landing or suggest America's evil for the use of atomic weapons against Imperial Japan, or who say that George Bush was behind 9/11 actually hate this country.
Maybe I am stupid for asking this. Who is Jeremy Boring?
You being serious?
I'm being serious.
Okay. He is the CEO of Daily Wire.
Okay.
Like Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire.
Yeah.
That's who he is. So,
best friends with Candace, if you haven't.
So,
I've never met him. I don't know.
By the way, he's actually a very smart guy. We've had him on the podcast, but there's a civil war going on a little bit right now where Tucker, Ben Shapiro is obviously a very different position. Yeah. What's your position when it comes down to the nuclear war?
I like your response here, by the way.
What's the response? Are you showing that one? Okay. Jeremy is in the entire premise of being a critical thinker to question things. Some of the best podcasters and influencers are those who question what no one else is questioning. Being anti-establishment is to question the establishment's motive. By the way, he responds to that. Rob, if you want to put the other one, then he puts, it is not critical thinking to say that America never landed on the moon or that George Bush orchestrated the 9/11 attacks. It is a rejection of critical thinking. And then I had one last response to him, which was kind of an interesting one. You want to play this one, Rob? I understand your point. However, I'm not a Christian because I broke bread with Jesus. I've never met him face to face. That requires a level of faith I'm willing to risk taking. But it also takes faith to believe that we landed on the moon or someone's involvement in the 9/11 attacks. Having that level of unwavering faith in the U.S. government is what I'm not willing to risk. History does not favor blind faith in any government. That was my position.
Great response.
Where do you stand with this?
You know, I think of, one of the famous speeches that President John F. Kennedy made when he talked about his own experience of being confronted with the possibility of a nuclear war being launched, and how he exercised the kind of leadership we should have in our country, where even as people in his own cabinet were encouraging him to take military action that he knew could spark a nuclear war with the Soviet Union, he instead chose to go behind their backs and conduct direct negotiations with the Soviet Union to walk back from the brink, because those two leaders recognized what Tucker was pointing out, that nuclear war leads to one place, the end of civilization, the destruction of living things, people, humanity on this planet. That is where nuclear war leads. And so, while and Tucker Carlson is a good friend, we've had a lot of amazing conversations. I may say things a little differently, but what he's talking about here really is how too many people celebrate the use of nuclear weapons, and so carelessly, both pundits on TV and people in Washington and those who make a lot of money from making these nuclear weapons very carelessly talk about a nuclear war being waged as though it can be won. And that is the real issue. And Ronald Reagan famously said that a nuclear war cannot be won and should never be waged. I'm paraphrasing it slightly, but that was his message. And so you've got a Democrat president and a Republican president, both who understood during that Cold War the very, very catastrophic consequences of a nuclear war being waged. So we look at where we are today. You've got the big strategic nuclear weapons that can take out entire cities or countries. You've got the tactical nuclear weapons that they say, well, they're smaller, they can be mobilized, they can be moved, and they can be used in a very targeted way, as though it's just another kind of mortar or bomb or missile that can be launched. The reality remains true, that was pointed out by JFK and Ronald Reagan, that our goal should be to make it so we are never at a point where the nuclear option is being considered. This is where diplomacy and leadership is so necessary, because under this administration, we are on the precipice of nuclear war. We are facing the prospect of a nuclear catastrophe, whether intentionally or unintentionally, because conditions have created such an environment, more so now than any time, certainly since the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is a reality. Those in Washington have bunkers where they will be protected, if not from the blast itself, then the nuclear fallout and the nuclear winter that will follow. The rest of us don't have that luxury. We saw this in Hawaii, and we've talked about this before, I think on your show, about what happened when we had that missile scare in Hawaii. When on a Saturday morning, this alert went out saying, missile inbound to Hawaii, take shelter immediately, this is not a drill. Growing up in Hawaii, who are the people closest to Hawaii that could reach us? North Korea, nuclear capable. They have intercontinental ballistic missiles that can carry nuclear warheads. So for those minutes on that early Saturday morning, it was just a question of how many minutes do we have until we are completely obliterated. While that turned out to be a false alarm, the reality of that threat was very real. It was something that I had hoped would be a wake-up call for leaders across the country, because what we saw was the message says, take shelter immediately, this is not a drill. And for us, for the people in Hawaii, just like for those of us sitting here, if our phones were to go off right this second with that message, missile inbound right here, take shelter immediately, where do we go? What do we do? How many minutes do we have? Where is there a bomb shelter that will protect us from the blast, that will give us clean water to drink and air to breathe and food to sustain ourselves for the time that would allow us to survive this? It doesn't exist. So they spend trillions of dollars investing in these nuclear weapons and growing them, which this is not like any other, like, it's not like, okay, how many rounds do I have left in my magazine? One of these nuclear weapons today is already far more powerful, many times more powerful than the nuclear weapons that were dropped in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. All it takes is one. The serious consequences of what we face are very real. So what do we do then? We should work towards getting ourselves in a place where we are not on the brink of nuclear catastrophe. We are reducing the proliferation of nuclear weapons in the world and working with leaders of other countries, even those that we may not like or have adversarial interests, to try to get across what JFK was successful in doing, and saying, hey, if we care about the existence of our own people and humanity as a whole, it is in all of our best interests to try to reduce this risk of nuclear war.
I think it's a crazy times that we're having this conversation, because 8 years ago, the conversation is, do you trust Trump's hand on the button? Yeah. Everyone was like, holy shit, this guy's no issues. Yeah. Now we see what's going on. They just passed a $95 billion foreign aid package. Ukraine, Russia, war. Yeah. Nobody has more nuclear weapons than Russia. I think 5,000.
They have over 5,000.
Something insane. All right, Iran, Israel, we're seeing the tit for tat thing that's going on there. The Obama administration sort of was took away the money from the Trump turnaround. You see this money going to, and then China, obviously, they have nuclear weapons. You see this money going to foreign aid to fund more wars against people that have nuclear weapons or trying to build nuclear weapons or capabilities. What the hell do you think we should do with that?
Well, I mean, the key problem there is escalation. All of these things are going towards escalation. We talked about this earlier on. Is the first question that our leaders should ask and answer is, what is our objective? What are we trying to accomplish? Where does this path lead us? And the path that they're leading us on, especially you talk about Russia, they have more nuclear weapons than any other nation in the world. Mm-hmm. They've changed their laws and their policies away from what was before a no first strike policy, meaning they would only launch a nuclear weapon in response if attacked, to now it is if they face an existential threat, then their laws authorize them to use nuclear weapons. What is an existential threat? It can be whatever they feel an existential threat is. It is not defined by a nuclear attack. When we have people making short-sighted decisions without acting in the best interest of the American people and our own national security, we end up exactly where we are, with multiple wars either being waged or bubbling up in regions around the world. And that is occurring directly because of the actions of this administration, the president and commander-in-chief. And yet another thing to add to the column of contrast between, as you pointed out, Adam, what happened under President Trump and what's happening under President Biden.
And then you see in Congress right now, Marjorie Taylor Greene is the leading voice. She got Kevin McCarthy out of there, her and Gates. Now she's basically trying to get Mike Johnson out of there. There's a growing number of Republicans, Vinny being one of them. It's like, why are we giving these people any money? Secure the border, right? Where do you stand on that? What should we be funding? Intervention, isolation? I'm of the capacity of we got to do something. What do you think from American First strategy? If you're part of this administration, what should we be funding? Where should our priorities be as an American?
I think that the dialogue is too often, are you an isolationist or are you an interventionist? I think both are the wrong answer. Also, the wrong answer is like, oh my gosh, there's something bad happening in the world. We have to do something. Well, what if the something you're thinking about is actually going to make things worse, not better? Sometimes the answer is not to just do something to make ourselves feel better, to say, well, gosh, some action needs to be taken. No, we've got to actually think about what are the different options? What are the courses of action? What serves the interest of our country? What serves the interest of our security? What will actually help in this situation versus what's going to make it worse? All of this increased funding, and this is what makes me angry about this administration's position and the neocons in both parties, who continue to fuel this proxy war with Russia, that the Biden administration is a regime change war against Russia. The Ukrainian people and their lives are the fodder in this war. If they really were compassionate and cared about the Ukrainian people, they would have jumped at the opportunity to lead brokering a peace treaty between these two countries as early and as quickly as possible. Not only did they not do that, they directly stopped attempts being made by other countries to bring both Russia and Ukraine to the table to actually have these negotiations. I saw it back then, before the war started, after it started. And yes, Russia and Putin was wrong to invade Ukraine. There's no question about that. But I always knew that the only way this ends is if there is a negotiated end to the war. One where both Russia and Ukraine are not necessarily happy with how it all ends, but more lives are saved. The fact that the Biden administration has blocked those attempts to bring about an end to this war over and over and over again should send a strong message about whose interests they really have at heart. It's not the people of Ukraine. So the more money that's being poured at this, like I said, they're just saying, well, we got to stop Ukraine from losing. None of them can define what does a win in Ukraine look like. If you asked different leaders in Washington, they'll say, oh, well, a win is Ukraine has all of their sovereign territory restored, including Crimea. There is no real world where that happens. That's just not, that's a fantasy. Okay, well, maybe it's, I spoke to someone the other day, she's like, well, you know, don't you want to see Ukraine win? And I said, what does winning look like? And she said, well, it puts them in a stronger position of leverage to be able to negotiate an end to the war. Well, that stronger position has come and gone. So now what does a win look like? Well, it just means not losing. So as we look through history, there are different examples of this. Are we, the United States, do we really want to be in a position to continue to fund a war of attrition where Russia has far more military hardware, far more bodies to fuel their military, and a military-industrial complex that can reconstitute their losses far more quickly than our government even estimated that they would be able to? Mm-hmm. So are we, the American people, signing up for a forever war to stop Ukraine from quote-unquote losing? Is that how we want to spend $60 billion? I have not heard from a single one of these people in Congress a cohesive argument for how that $60 billion will achieve a very specific quote-unquote win. I've not heard a single person. I would respect an argument that was backed by substance, that could show us, make the case to the American people, why your money, our money, should go towards something that we can't even account for with no definable positive outcome versus going and securing our border. An issue that really does pose a direct national security threat for us right now.
So that's Ukraine. What about Israel, Iran,
my
Gaza?
point is, because you started the question, intervention versus isolationist. I am neither. I'm a realist, and I am America first. I'm the American people first. So as we look at, because there will always be different challenges that pop up in different parts of the world. That's the reality of the world we live in. JFK talked about peace that's not some, fantasy that, okay, kumbaya, we can all dance around and everything. It is a constant effort that requires work and it requires strength and leadership. So with each of these different examples, we have to be able to make those decisions based, again, on that context of what is in the best interest of our security and the American people, and how will our course of action, whether it be to get involved or to not get involved, or to be able to provide some support, but perhaps not our entire military, those decisions have to be made within that context of knowing exactly what we're doing, why we're doing it, and not doing it carelessly to say, well, there's a bad guy, we got to go do something bad to the bad guy. We've seen so many times how those short-sighted emotional decisions actually end up harming our country, actually end up harming our economy, actually end up harming our security, which is where, again, we've got to see the world for what it is. We've got to understand our own limitations as a country. We cannot go, nor should we try to go save everyone in the world. We cannot and should not be the world's police. We cannot and should not try to build little Americas around the world. We need to engage with leaders in other countries. We need to be a good partner. We need to exercise and be an example of freedom and democracy right here at home. and recognize that the best way to build relationships is not by first turning towards economic warfare through sanctions or dropping bombs. It's about finding those areas of mutual and shared common interest so that you can work out those differences and those problems without immediately and constantly resorting to war.
So I got a question for you. So this $95 billion bill that we're talking about, $60 billion to Ukraine, $26 billion to Israel, $8 billion security Taiwan, and then they have some money that was going to the $26 billion broken down as a portion going to, I believe, Gaza, and a portion that's going to humanitarian aid, $8 billion, I think it was something. And
military and humanitarian.
$18 billion
They're
going
giving
to Israel.
money for Israel to defend itself and to bomb Palestine, but also for Palestinians to eat some food while they're getting bombed.
So do you think the money that we're giving to Israel and to Palestine is appropriate, the money that we're giving to them?
I don't know what this administration's actual policy is on that. It appears, and so the aid to Palestine, let's look at that part first. I do believe and support Israel's right to defend itself, and they have been and continue to be an ally of the United States. This is bigger than just the latest in the Israel versus Palestine conflict. We as a country need to recognize that this terrorist attack by the Islamist group Hamas is the latest front in the threat of Islamism, radical Islamism that we are seeing around the world. Hamas is no different from Al-Qaeda, is no different from ISIS, is no different from any of these Islamist terrorist organizations whose goal is not only to kill or convert people who don't adhere to their ideology, it is to wage that ideological warfare, which is what they have been doing for generations, and what so many leaders in the West have failed to recognize and to fight in that ideological battle. And whether it's because they're intellectually incapable of fighting that war, or they're terrified, as I know the Biden administration is terrified of fighting that war and calling radical Islam out for what it is, because they're afraid of being labeled Islamophobes and afraid of being attacked by the kind of pro-Hamas activists that we are seeing taking over these college campuses today. This is not about just fighting or supporting a war being fought in some other foreign land. If we think that there are not Hezbollah or other Islamist terrorist cells here in America right now, then you are naive. This is something that's happening around the world, whether on the kinetic front or on the ideological front, and we need leaders with courage to take on that battle, which is really about freedom. It's ultimately about freedom, because their goal is to enact Islamic rule over the world. And we see it already happening in some countries in Europe where they actually have Sharia law in place. It is not a stretch of an imagination that this is their ultimate objective. I feel for the people in Palestine. I feel for the fact that they are living under this terrorist organization's rule. When I talked about not being clear about what the Biden-Harris administration's plan is, they're talking about building this humanitarian water bridge to be able to deliver aid, and using our U.S. service members to do so. I think the Department of Defense spokesperson, when asked about, well, what risk are our servicemen and women going to incur in doing this? And his response was something along the lines of, well, I would hope that Hamas would recognize that we are trying to help the people of Palestine and would not cause harm to our troops. This is a 2-star Air Force general speaking on behalf of the Department of Defense. The tired line has been overused about hope is not a strategy. But he is saying that he hopes that a radical Islamist terrorist group that launched this horrific attack against Israel on October 7th recognizes the good-heartedness of the American people, as though they care about the Palestinian people. They don't care about the Palestinian people. They don't care about American service members. And so this is the problem where we're saying, okay, well, where is this funding? That is my question. Where is this funding actually going? Because things like that make me believe that, like so many other things the administration is doing, they have not thought this through. And my concern is they needlessly put our men and women in a place of great harm that could inevitably or unintentionally draw us and our military directly into this war.
Yeah, it's wild because when you're watching this, there's even some numbers came out, some articles came out that some of Zelensky's generals were upset that they were not getting enough of a cut on the money that was being sent to him, that he's the only one that's getting rich, but his generals are not getting rich enough. So well, at least one part is somebody got rich the last 2 years, and maybe his first name is, what's his first name? Vladimir, right?
Vladimir.
Maybe he got richer, you know, and he's kind of fooled America and keeps sending money over his way. But you're talking about all these protesting, 108 people arrested, students at Columbia, 47 Yale, 120 at NYU, at University of Minnesota. People are have you guys seen all these camping, what these kids are doing? Rob, can you show some of these videos with the protests going on across the country on universities?
That's USC, Los Angeles.
Do you have the clip of the two girls when they're being asked that Vinny showed us about, hey, Vinny, did you send it to him or no? Do you have it? If you want to send it to him, these two girls are being asked, hey, what are we here for? What are we protesting?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I don't know what we're here for, but I think we're what are you guys here for? Have you seen this clip?
Yeah, of course. I'm
sending
Show
it
There's
this
so
clip.
many of them, but
Well, I mean, the point is, though, if you think about this, I wonder if somebody that's extremely, like, purely technical data person, where were chaos in 2016? High.
Boom.
Then it drops. Then where was chaos in 2020? BLM protesting high. 2021, chaos drops. 2021, 2022, 2023, 24. Where's chaos now with election year again high? This is a different kind of a chaos. They're all come in different shapes. And go ahead and play this clip, Rob.
What would you say is the main goal with tonight's protest?
I think the goal is just showing our support for Palestine and demanding that NYU stops. I honestly don't know all of what NYU's doing.
Is there something that NYU's doing?
I really don't know. I'm pretty sure they're... Do you know what NYU's doing? About what?
Look.
Israel. Why are we protesting here?
Watch.
I wish I was more educated. I came from Columbia. I was there up at Columbia, and we came down. They said NYU students needed our support, so I came down.
You can pause it, Rob. What a great line.
Yeah.
On a university campus, a student saying, I wish I was more educated. I agree. I wish you were. By the way, think about who's influencing this, though. Think about who's influencing this. Who's driving this hatred for America? Who's driving this division? It is, if you think about who's driving this division, who is it? Professors.
1,000.
Who else is it? So I'm a professor, I'm teaching these kids, it is not fair what these rich people are doing. Lecture. Divide, go protest. Hey, all of these kids that are not getting Sally Mae's, let's bail them out. Taxpayers, you pay for them. You guys are so awesome. You keep working hard. You work your ass off. We'll take 60% of your money, 50% of your money. But these poor kids going to college who hate America, you don't need to pay your college tuition. You're okay, sweetheart. But vote for us because we care about you more than anybody else does.
And you nailed it.
We care for you. We really do care for you.
And you nailed it, Pat, because think about it. These are all Ivy League schools. That's not organic. Somebody is organizing that. Yeah. And when you said who's doing it, besides the professors, besides TikTok
Jorge.
that you were talking about.
You think it's Jorge?
Jorge's 100% involved in it.
Jorge's involved?
Jorge.
And then
No.
this
It's
is
called
one of the
Jorge
main...
Soros.
Oh, yeah.
Jorge Soros.
Mira, I thought you meant
Jorge Soros.
Oh, you mean Jorge Soros, who put $15 million, funneled $15 million to fund. Think about it. Why would a Jewish guy pay to have Hamas protesters? That's such a weird correlation. It's weird. It's like he wants to cause this division, this craziness, this chaos. And you nailed it, Pat. It's during this election year, and it's like, don't be fooled, guys. This is all a distraction. They're showing you. They don't even know what the hell they're in the street for. Yeah. And this should sum everything up about that person. She's wearing a mask outside.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know about who she is and her level of education.
So
extremely responsible, Vinny. Give her
well,
some
number
credit.
one, thank God it's not you, Jorge, because I love you, bro. He's
She's
not
not
there on the
social
camera on the
distancing
AV. But yes, the professors, I think 13-1 liberal versus conservative professors in the universities. We've gone over this. When we started the podcast, it was 11-1. Now it's even increased. TikTok, for sure. Indoctrination over education. We're seeing that now, that's part of that. Soros. But I'm actually putting this on one person, Joe frickin' Biden, because he doesn't have clarity on this. It'd be so, these are useful idiots.
Pause.
You know, they say when you're, pause. Thank you. Call back comedy. When you're young, if you are not a liberal, you have no heart. When you're older, if you're not a conservative, you have no brain. They're young. I understand why a young person, whether it's in the Vietnam anti-war movement, whether it's the, Occupy Wall Street movement, we've seen young people get involved in these types of things, and it'll continue to do this. But Biden doesn't have the freaking balls to be like, bro, Israel's an ally. They're a democracy. Hamas is a terrorist group, just like Tulsi just had the balls, more the balls than Joe Biden respect, to say, yes, we're on team.
Adam.
I know, it's not a
Adam,
trans joke. Tulsi, you get what I'm saying.
I accepted in the spirit it was
Yes, in the
spoken.
spiritual. Exactly. But there's two reasons why
It
Biden
wasn't
won't do
spiritual, but yeah. Anyway, sorry, go
Tulsi,
ahead. Adam,
you're
you're on a
beautiful
roll. Let's go. Let's
You're
go.
a beautiful woman. You're at the top of Trump's
going, you're on a roll.
list. But there's two reasons, and you can point right to it. Why is he doing this? There's two reasons. The young woke crowd, the intersectional decolonialization crew that's being indoctrinated. But number two, Michigan. Okay, Michigan is in play. It's the number one state in the Blue Wall State. Dearborn, Michigan is the number one state where our friends of that religion live. And that's where Rashida Tlaib is a congresswoman, Palestinian congresswoman, who she's the only person to basically vote against supporting an ally. He wants their votes. So Joe Biden doesn't have the what I call balls to be like, we're on pro-democracy, pro-Israel, not on pro-Hamas. And that's the problem. And then the chaos will trickle down because we don't have leadership at the top that basically speaks truth to power.
Tulsi,
That's
I'll
my
give you the
solution.
final thoughts here before we wrap up.
Those who care about the Palestinian people should be just as outspoken against Hamas as we are today.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. The
Meanwhile-
problem is they don't know what river or what sea they're even protesting about.
Meanwhile, this is just the beginning, folks.
Yeah.
Buckle up. There's a reason why one who is a lieutenant colonel living on possibly one of the most beautiful islands in the world chooses, when her family calls saying, when are we going to see you again, saying, you're not going to see me on this island until November 6th, right? You either have issues with the food on the island, you either know maybe it's not surfing season, maybe you know something we don't know, or maybe you love America. For the love of our country, you want to go fight for it between now and November 6th, and you gotta respect, salute, and applaud the great Tulsi Gabbard.
Yes.
Absolutely. And with that being said, I want to wrap it up again. For those of you watching and you're fully supportive of the message, the fastest way you can support is go order the book. And for some of you that maybe even support it even more than anything else, you run a company, you got a family, you want to send it to your kids, order 2 or 3 and give it to your kids, give it to your family, give it to others to read as well, especially for supporters. Sometimes the biggest challenge is we call ourselves supporters, but when it comes down to supporting, we're thinking in our mind that, oh, it's other people will support plenty, it's going to be all right. No. The next 6 months, if you love America, 6.5 months, if you love America, it's going to take every single one of our efforts, because the dirty games they're going to play is going to get worse day by day by day. Tulsi, as usual, you're so amazing. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming out today. So nice
Thank you,
to see
everybody.
you. Thank you.